My boyfriend of 6 months tattooed my name across his chest as his way of showing his commitment to me, but instead of making me feel romantic and loving towards him, it really made me uncomfortable, and now I really don't know what to do from here. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my boyfriend and I are in our early 20s, and this is my first serious relationship. Lately, I've been asking him for more commitment. Not anything extreme like marriage, but practical things, such as introducing me to his family and his friends, and having clearer conversations about the future instead of keeping things vague. For my birthday, instead of getting me a gift or planning something, he surprised me by tattooing my name on his chest. It's his first and only tattoo, and it's very large. He believes this should mean a lot because I've been asking him to show more commitment. But the problem is that this isn't what I meant by commitment at all. I very specifically asked for real-life actions that make me feel included in his life and his future. And I'll also be honest about something that feels petty, but it's still true. After I found out how much a tattoo that size costs, part of me couldn't help but wish that money had gone towards like an actual birthday gift or a shared experience instead. My friends say that I'm being ungrateful and that I should move at his pace because we've only been together for 6 months, and that a tattoo is a huge romantic gesture and proof that he's serious about me. But instead of feeling loved, I feel uncomfortable and misunderstood. What worries me the most is that when I communicated something specific I needed, he responded with a dramatic gesture that doesn't actually address it. And I think we have very different ideas of what commitment looks like. He really does seem to love me, which is why this is all so confusing. Is this something that could be worked through with better communication? Or is it reasonable to see this as a red flag? And how do you help someone understand your needs when they think they're already showing up in the biggest way possible? Also, I looked up how much tattoo removal cost, and I would feel really bad mentioning how I feel and making him pay for that. It just adds another layer of guilt to an already confusing situation. What should I do? Okay, I don't even know where to start with this, dude. Your boyfriend's an idiot. He literally got a tattoo on his chest of your name and is somehow convinced this is him showing his love for you. Dude, if someone did that to me, I'd be like, oh, cool, we're breaking up. Have fun with that. Like, dude, that's so weird. That's so weird. I don't know why he did that. He did this extreme thing of being like, this is how committed to you I am. I got your name across my chest. This is how much I love you. And yet that is literally not the definition of loving someone. And also, holy crap, you've only been together for 6 months. You're 6 months into this relationship and this guy's like, yes, I need to put your name across my chest. This'll show how committed I am. Then she'll love me for real. Like, bro, what are you on about? That is not the way to do that. So no, you're not weird for being like, this is creepy. I don't like this anymore and I'm very uncomfortable. Because I would feel the same way. Like literally anybody at that amount of time of being in a relationship would feel that way as well. Because think about it. You're asking for something actual real in his life, but he's responding with like almost a symbol of what it means to be committed to you. When it's like, dude, I just wanted to meet your friends. Like, what's going on right now? Let me say hi to your mom. Like, holy crap. Don't put a tattoo on your chest. My God, dude. So no, you didn't ask this, but yes, this would be a deal breaker for me. I would almost certainly break up with my partner if they did this to me because this is incredibly alarming and not at all romantic. And if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely take this as a giant red flag because this is not something you ever want to begin to ignore. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My in-laws literally steal things from restaurants and Airbnbs, and it's gotten to a point where I literally just don't want to be in public with them because I'm so worried they're going to get caught and I'm going to have my reputation ruined. Here's some details about this to kind of explain where I'm coming from. Okay, for starters, my in-laws literally make over 6 figures a year, and whenever we go out to eat or stay at a hotel or like an Airbnb together, they steal glassware or literally whatever other small trinkets they feel they should have. For example, my mother-in-law wanted to take this soap dispenser from the Airbnb at Christmas, and they loot all the toilet paper from the hotel rooms as well. It is literally mortifying. I have to vent it here on the internet because my husband can't see it since he was raised around this. Like, how do you actually trust people like that? And I think it's messed up that 2 people in their 60s do it in front of others such as me as if this is somehow normal. I had to ask my husband to tell them not to do it in our small town because I don't want to be on camera anywhere with them while they do it in any of our like local restaurants where I may know the business owners professionally. And then the last time I hung out with my mother-in-law and a friend of hers while my husband wasn't there, she mentioned that cameras might be around everywhere, like 3 different times. And I'm just assuming he said something to her. Honestly, what is wrong with this lady and what is wrong with this family? Because this is incredibly weird and I'm just so sick of dealing with it. Okay, bro, I don't know if you realize this, but someone in the comments section put it perfectly. You know for a fact they have stolen things from your home, right? Like if they're willing to do this at an Airbnb, I could care less about the hotel issue, but someone's house that they're renting, that you better believe they're probably willing to do that at your place as well. Honestly, I think the fact that they steal all the toilet paper from a hotel is kind of funny in my opinion. I don't care as much about that, but someone's private home that you're literally renting through Airbnb, bro, don't steal from that. What are you doing? So yeah, if I was in your shoes, I would start putting things under lock and key, especially if you don't want them rifling through your stuff like some kind of stray dog, because I'm willing to bet they've probably done this to you at some point. Am I the jerk for kicking my brother out of my house after I discovered that he threw a party at my place without my permission that completely trashed my house? Because right now he's saying I'm a jerk and I'm ignorant for doing this. But at this point, I'm super pissed off and I don't know what to do. Here's how it all started. Okay, so about 2 nights ago, I received a call from my neighbor explaining that there are multiple cars outside my house and loud music coming from inside. Well, I immediately asked my neighbor to knock on the door and ask what's going on. And it's here that he was told that it was a party. I was on a night out with my girlfriend and was absolutely furious, as we had previously made it clear, no parties unless I give permission. For a bit of backstory, my brother broke up with his girlfriend who he was living with, and we gave him a room in my house until he saved up money from his job to find a place. We obviously had some basic rules, like he had to clean up after himself and help throughout the house. Anyways, I thanked my neighbor for notifying me and I instantly went home. When I arrived, the music was still loud, and I entered a dirty house with glasses everywhere and a bunch of drunk men and women all over the place. I then immediately found him and I shut it all down. Once everybody had cleared out, we had a massive argument and I ended up kicking him out at night. The living room, by the way, was completely trashed, with one of the glasses shattered all over the floor and spilled alcohol everywhere. The next day, my brother called me and we got into another argument, him calling me an ignorant jerk and insulting me. So seriously, am I the jerk for kicking him out in the middle of the night after what he did? Because right now I'm still reeling from this and I am so pissed off. Dude, if someone trashed my house after I told them specifically, hey, don't have a party while I'm gone, I would lose my mind. Also, you really should not have to specify that towards someone living in your house temporarily. It should be implied that, yeah, I'm not gonna throw some kind of wild drunken party while you're gone. Like, holy crap, this guy does not sound like a good person, and it sounds like he doesn't appreciate what you're doing for him at all. So no, you're not the jerk for kicking him out, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would have done the same thing. Am I the jerk for not allowing my sister-in-law's husband to stay in the bridal suite while we were getting ready? Because honestly, we were kind of in our underwear and I didn't want him in there. But after this happened, I feel like I really pissed off my sister-in-law, and now I'm kind of in a situation where I simply don't know if I'm in the wrong or not. Here's how it happened. Okay, so for my wedding day, we rented a hotel suite in the city. I paid for hair and makeup for all my bridesmaids, and as a courtesy, I also paid for my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law. I'm not close to my sister-in-law, but she is very close to my husband, so I just included her just for the heck of it. On the morning of the wedding, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law arrived late because my sister-in-law and her husband had been on a beach trip. When they arrived, my sister-in-law brought her husband into the suite with his clothes so that he could get ready for the wedding later, which really surprised me because she didn't mention anything about bringing him with her. All 3 of them sat on the couch and her husband stayed there on his phone. I then texted my husband asking if he was supposed to stay and get dressed there, but he didn't know either. Well, I then told him that this was meant to be a women-only space since all of us were wearing robes that open easily and our underwear was visible. I asked my husband to tell his sister that her husband could wait in the hotel lobby, but she refused and was also against the idea of him driving back alone to our house to get ready with my husband and groomsmen because she didn't want to risk him getting lost since he's from another country. She got upset and tried to leave, but the hair and makeup artist convinced her to come back since it was already paid for. So she got her hair and makeup done, and then all 3 of them left anyways and waited in the lobby. They even ended up getting dressed in the lobby bathroom, even though my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were allowed to stay in the suite if they wanted to. My mother told me privately that she thought it was rude to bring a man into a room where only women were getting ready. So seriously, am I the jerk for not allowing him to stay there? Was I being inflexible? She was clearly very upset about the whole thing, and I totally understand that maybe she just didn't want him to wait alone for hours in the lobby while we were getting ready, but honestly, I don't know what else to do here. What should I do? Okay, this is so weird because, dude, you guys are getting dressed, you're in your underwear, and there's a guy sitting there on his phone just kind of hanging out. Like, I'm sorry, you gotta go. And the same could be said if it was a bunch of guys getting ready and there's just this random lady sitting in the corner. I would probably have the same expectation of privacy and be like, dude, can you sit outside? This is so awkward. So no, you're not the jerk. They are so stupid for getting offended over that. Because at the end of the day, this is your wedding. And if they really want to be a part of it, then they need to listen to you or get out of the way. Am I the jerk for interrupting my autistic brother's routine every night, as I literally need to sit on the couch because my bed is way too painful to lay on? And despite the fact that I've explained this to my parents many times, they still choose to ignore it and side with my brother instead. And at this point, I'm honestly frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. I'm a 17-year-old female and I have a 15-year-old brother who is autistic. He has a routine where he comes downstairs at night, watches TV when no one else is down, and falls asleep on the couch. Lately, my bed has become uncomfortable to the point of pain. For context, I have hyperflexibility and a connective tissue disorder as well as scoliosis. And as a result of my scoliosis, my shoulders are wonky and my left shoulder blade grinds against my ribs. But this also causes like generic pain and means that too much pressure on my back for an extended period of time causes quite severe pain, such as laying on my mattress. My mattress is very old. It came from my older sister who had it for about 10 years, and I got it with like mild to moderate use. And at this point, I've used it for about over 5 years. The foam on top of the metal frame has worn down, and now I can feel the frame no matter how or where I lie, and I wake up in quite severe pain. I also spend a couple of hours winding down before I sleep, and so, as of late, I've been coming downstairs to watch the TV to wind down myself, so I spare myself from a couple of hours in the bed on the mattress, and it honestly does help. However, my brother has now decided to find it a problem, and this has caused arguments and issues. He has also brought our parents into this, who naturally take his side, because it is his routine, so don't break it, even though my issues are brought up. He just decided to go up and yell at my parents when I told him preemptively that I was going to come downstairs, and clearly my parents for once took my side, as he came down and gave me a bunch of verbal lashings. Now, I don't do this every night, just the nights I have the worst pain from several nights of no break. And I don't tell him that he can't be down. I tell him he is more than welcome to sit on the love chair that we also have in the living room, with the only request that he either uses headphones or has his volume really low on his phone without headphones, so I can actually focus and enjoy what I'm watching. However, he has decided that clearly that is the worst condition ever, and instead puts his volume at full blast, which I know for a fact my parents will be able to hear. I feel bad, but I also know that I need to put my health first because no one else in this house will. My parents disregard my bountiful issues and tell me I'm overdramatic, even when they themselves have it and experienced it as they passed it down to me. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Should I just suck it up? I do have a TV in my own room, but it's only accessible to watch on my bed, and he also has a computer in his room with access to literally everything, so it's not like he doesn't have options. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, your parents are really the problem here. Also your brother, but I'll get to that in a second. Your parents have basically justified this behavior from your brother for way too long, and they've essentially made it where like, yeah, they allow him to do pretty much whatever he wants because this is supposedly a part of his routine. The original poster also clarified that yes, their brother is autistic, but he's also high functioning, as she goes on to say that he lives a relatively normal life with minimal limitations, meaning that he very easily could like, I don't know, do whatever he's doing on his phone while also having his headphones on, or at least turning the volume down and being respectful. But seriously, the fact that your parents haven't gotten you a new mattress is crazy in my opinion. You've got scoliosis, you've got all these issues with your back, and they just simply don't care at all. Like they literally are just like, yeah, but your brother's routine. And sure, they came to your defense that one night, but like, dude, why are they not doing anything about that? It is incredibly ignorant for them to sit there and do nothing while you're suffering every single night. So no, you're not the jerk for interrupting anybody's routine, because you're obviously in pain and you're just trying to find a way to fall asleep, and the way you're being treated is just not fair in my opinion. Am I overreacting by being upset after my mother-in-law took my phone from the kitchen and brought it upstairs to her bedroom? Because after dealing with her going through my mail in the past, I'm kind of concerned that she tried to do something with my phone but got caught in the act. And now I'm not sure what to make of this and I just don't know what to do. Here's how it happened. To start things out, I'm a 34-year-old female and I was cooking and had my phone sitting on the kitchen island. My mother-in-law came downstairs empty-handed to ask me if I had seen something. I said no and I told her I would keep an eye out for it and I continued cooking. cooking, and she looked around the kitchen for a bit and then she went back upstairs. She was probably down there for like a total of 5 minutes. Well, about 10 minutes later, I went upstairs to ask my partner a question, and when I went back down, I noticed my phone wasn't on the island. I went back up to ask my partner to call my phone, and I stood in the room for a bit and I just didn't hear it. So I went back down to the kitchen and I stood, but still I got nothing. Then I go back upstairs, and when I got to the top, my mother-in-law comes out of her room with my phone in one hand and her phone under her armpit. I just stand there for a minute confused, and she hands me my phone while saying, "Oh, your phone was in my room. I have no idea how it got there. It was in my covers." I said to her, "Okay," and then I took it. Then I walked back to my partner. Then she followed me for a bit, just repeating that she has no idea how it got there. Now the thing is, she has an iPhone that has a purple case, and I have an Android with an all-black case and a screensaver of an astronaut. Our phones do not look similar at all. She has picked up mine and my partner's phones in front of us before without looking, and then instantly realized they weren't hers and put them back down right away. So if she grabbed mine by mistake, why then would she go back to her room and see that it was hers and not just bring it straight back down to me? She had it up there for over 10 minutes. She also didn't bring it out when it started ringing. It went all the way to voicemail before she brought it out. Her reaction also confused me, just repeating that she had no idea and not saying something like, "Oh, sorry, I must have grabbed it thinking it was mine." Now, just for a bit more context about why I'm feeling uncomfortable about this, about a year after moving in here, she randomly started opening my mail. Our names are also not similar in any way. Mine is a very traditional Irish name, and hers is very French, so the spelling could not be more different. She only ever opened mine and never my partner's, despite them sharing a last name. My partner questioned her, and at first she just straight up denied it. But then when he said that he had witnessed her do it, she conceded that she had done it mistakenly once or twice. But it happened over 5 times. But once he told her to stop, it hasn't happened since then. Outside of these instances, she is nothing but kind and loving to me. So it really throws me off, and I have no idea if I'm overreacting here. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're overreacting, but I really do think your mother-in-law was trying to go through your phone. She already got caught once trying to go through your mail, but now she's grabbing your phone and running off with it, and that just seems a little bit sketchy. So she's either got early signs of dementia, or she's absolutely trying to go through your stuff, which is also a bad scenario. So no, I don't think you're overreacting at all. I would be very pissed off if someone took my phone and didn't give it back right away, especially if my phone and their phone literally couldn't be any more different. Am I the jerk for refusing to apologize after I called out my friend for blatantly and openly flirting with my boyfriend? Because right now my friend is saying that I embarrassed her despite the fact that I know what I saw, and at this point I'm not sure what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old female, and I've been dating my boyfriend, who I will call Ryan, for about a year. Things have been solid. He's not perfect, but he is consistent, respectful, and he's never given me a reason to question him. My friend, who I will call Sasha, has been in my life ever since high school. We've had our ups and downs, but I've always considered her one of my closest friends. Well, recently she's been acting weird. It started really small. Little comments, like when I'd mention Ryan, she would say stuff like, "Oh, he's actually really cute. You're so lucky. Oh man, you did so good." Which is fine in and of itself. I mean, compliments happen. But then it started feeling less like compliments and more like testing boundaries. Whenever we would hang out as a group, she would sit right beside him. Not near him, mind you, but beside him. She would laugh too hard at his jokes. She would touch his arm while talking. She would ask him questions like, "Oh, what's your type?" or "What kind of girls do you usually go for?" And Ryan would just be polite because that's his personality. He's not the kind to be rude, especially to my friends. But I could tell he was uncomfortable because he would look at me like he needed some help. But the moment that really made me snap happened last weekend. We were at a small house party with friends. I went to the kitchen to grab some drinks, and when I came back, I saw Sasha sitting way too close to Ryan on the couch. Like their legs were almost touching. She was leaning in, talking in that soft voice girls use when they want attention, and then I heard her say something like, "Oh, you're honestly boyfriend material. Whoever ends up with you is so lucky." And I honestly just stood there for a second like, okay, is this even real? Ryan laughed awkwardly and shifted away, but Sasha didn't stop. She kept going. I then walked up and I said, "Sasha, are you seriously flirting with my boyfriend right in front of me?" And when I said that, everybody went silent. Sasha immediately acted shocked and said, "What are you talking about? I'm just being friendly." But I told her no, friendly is not sitting on top of him and complimenting him like he's on a dating app. She then rolled her eyes and said I'm insecure and embarrassing myself. And that's when I said something I probably should not have said out loud, but I meant it. I told her she's not a friend. She is a snake, and she's been doing this for weeks, like she's trying to see what she can get away with. She then got up and stormed out, and now she's texting me saying I humiliated her and accused her of something disgusting, and now she's demanding that I apologize for calling her names and making a scene. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because I know what I saw, and honestly, I'm pretty pissed off about it. Okay, from the sounds of it, it really seems like Sasha's at fault here. I don't think you're the jerk at all. She knew what she was doing. She saw that you weren't in the room and decided, oh, I'm gonna get right up on this guy. I'm gonna get right up on him, I'm gonna corner him on this couch, and I'm gonna get really flirty. And by the way, she absolutely has a thing for Ryan, and you were smart to catch on by saying that, yeah, she was definitely flirting with him. So no, you're not the jerk for calling her out. I think this absolutely needed to be done because your friend was being creepy and it was clearly making your boyfriend incredibly uncomfortable. My girlfriend lied to me about being alone in a hot tub when we were at an Airbnb together with another group. And now, after pressuring her to tell the truth over and over again, the truth is slowly coming out, and I'm honestly starting to think that something may have happened. And at this point, I'm not sure what to do. Here's how it all started. Okay, so my girlfriend and I were in an Airbnb with some other people. She stayed up until 5 in the morning in a hot tub getting drunk. At first, there was a few people, but it ended with her and another guy. She came back to our room and I confronted her about it, but she lied about it just being them. A week later, we had a few conversations about the boundaries on that, and I really thought that we made up. But I then found out that she messaged him the next day apologizing for last night and then deleted the message. She said she was just apologizing for kicking him in the shin while getting out. After more prodding, she said it was because she had her foot right next to his leg. When I originally confronted her, she yelled at me saying that I was crazy and there was other people there. But after I asked about it again, she again got defensive and upset, saying if I don't trust her, then what are we doing together? So seriously, can I move past this lie? In the bottom of my heart, I don't think she cheated, but I'll never know because she lied about everything about that night so far. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, it seems like the truth is slowly trickling out in this situation. We don't have a lot to work with here, but obviously it seems like the girlfriend is not being completely honest with you. And in my opinion, it does kind of sound like something happened that she doesn't want you to know. Also, holy crap, why are you getting drunk in a hot tub until 5 in the morning? That not only doesn't sound safe, but to do that around people you don't even know, that is incredibly irresponsible. So in my opinion, I think she's definitely hiding something and she's getting defensive because you're slowly peeling back the onion. And I think it's only a matter of time until she confesses what really happened in that hot tub because clearly she doesn't want you to know about it. An entitled jerk ruins me and my friend's night by being very smug and obnoxious towards me and my friends. So we decided to get some petty revenge by getting this guy pulled over while he was driving home after we reported him for driving under the influence. Here's what happened. So this story takes place about 20 years ago. In the mid-2000s, my friends and I would frequent a small billiards place in a neighboring town where you could rent a table by the hour or play per game. We would play a few games, watch whatever sports were on TV, and have some casual conversations. There were no problems and no drama until about 3 months of us visiting this place. Some guy shows up and takes our spot at the billiards table, and this is no big deal. We were all chatting anyways. 20 minutes later, my friend lets him know we want to play the next game, and this jerk is super dismissive. Needless to say, we didn't get in during the next game, so I politely let him know that we wanted to play the next one, and another lady chimed in that she wanted the next game after us. Well, this entitled jerk just blatantly ignored me and the other woman. Some more time goes by, and this guy leaves the table, and that's when we see our chance to get in. We put the quarters in and the balls are all dispensed. That is, except for the green number 6 ball. And that's when we realized that this guy took it with him to the bathroom. At this point, it was ridiculous, and we notified the manager. The manager noted that it was 12:30, and they were going to be calling last call and closing, so he didn't want to make a scene by kicking him out. So instead, he just gets us another ball so that we can play. This entitled jerk then comes out of the bathroom, and he knows that we realize exactly what he did. He smirks and proceeds to the patio to have a smoke, bringing along his beer and the green billiard ball. The guy then comes back in and tossed the ball as he was holding onto the table, hitting a few of the balls on the table and messing up our game. He then goes up to the bar just in time for last call. Well, one of the friends I was with suggested that we follow him home and each call the highway patrol to report a suspected drunk driver. And you know what? 3 out of the 4 of us agreed. So when he leaves, we used our phones to coordinate several calls to the police. We provided details details like a license plate, the vehicle make and model, and the color, and we mentioned the car nearly hit another vehicle, was swerving between lanes and driving erratically. And this was all under a 15-minute plan too, by the way. We had no idea where the guy lived, but we suspected it was close, as he was visiting a neighborhood place, so our time was very limited. The one guy who didn't notify the police tailed this jerk and called us excited when a police officer pulled between him and the guy and turned in his lights to pull him over. The police blotter that week included an arrest of a guy who was pulled over after multiple calls of erratic driving. He wasn't arrested for DWI, but instead for driving on a suspended license. And honestly, with all things considered, we're glad we did this because this guy absolutely deserved it. Yeah, that guy was being a massive jerk. He took your spot at the billiards table literally for no reason, and then he takes the number 6 ball with him to the bathroom, so you guys can't have any kind of game of your own. Like, that's not only super toxic, but it's also obnoxious. And what's with the manager not kicking this guy out and making an example of him? It's pretty clear this guy was trying to cause problems, and the manager's like, oh, we're close to last call, I can't do that yet. Like, that manager was a coward, and he absolutely could have sorted this out. So yeah, good for these people for getting this guy in trouble, because while yes, he absolutely was a jerk at that bar, he was also definitely driving while having a few drinks. And that, in my opinion, is more than enough reason for this guy to find himself in some hot water. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled old jerk demands that we serve him a steak the exact way that he demands it and treats me and my staff like garbage, as he refuses to listen to anything I had to say. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of background, I'm a chef for a grocery store chain, which runs seasonal food events, hot bars, salad bars, and a bakery. And this is in a coastal town riddled with retirees and just straight up stereotypical old people with nothing to do. It's just a boring town with money. And though I'm from a much more diverse city with culture and background, I do fit in with my job and I'm well regarded by my peers. People know who I am. They like my food, and they generally show respect for the work that the boys and I do. However, some of these old entitled jerks simply can never be satisfied. Now, our flagship event is our prime rib dinner deal that costs $17.99, and it is an 8 to 10 ounce cut of meat. This is a medium rare steak that comes with sides. And you know what? As a chef, I think it's an absolute steal, especially with the work I do to get it to taste great and the manual labor from multiple people just to make it to the customer's plate. A lot of the old people around this area approach the station and just spew out that they want their steak rare. And this is really annoying for quite a few reasons. For starters, I work in retail, so we're looked down upon, so pleasantries such as, hey, may I please have a rare steak, just isn't something that these old entitled jerks think that they need to give to somebody in front of them. Secondly, we sell our roast beef medium rare, and we do that for taste and safety reasons. You'll also often see perfect steaks with a gray overlay due to the heat lamp, so we try to face them away or carve and serve for freshness. And sometimes we don't even have to do that. A lot of people don't know anything about food in general, so what they see is not what they think they will get, and a proper heat lamp can't cook a steak to a high temperature when the steak doesn't spend too much time under it. But if you cut into one of them, you will still see that it's pink more often than not. Now, there's 2 people at the carving station when it's really busy, but otherwise the other person is working in the back. So my partner was carving and I was making plates. And for reference, he often lets me deal with unruly jerks because I can be fake nice and tell him to go kick some rocks. But of course with nicer words and with a smile. I ask down the line and take a head count for orders just to make sure we have enough plates and clear the line quickly. That is until the entitled jerk of this story steps up. This guy looks at me and says,
I want the rarest one that you've got.
I look at him and I say, we'll do what we can, my friend. And then I continue to try and do my head count. This guy then jumps in again and says to me,
did you hear what I said, young man?
So I look at him and I say, you'll get what is in front of you or you can loop back around later. Plus, we just took out a fresh slab out of the hot box. He then says to me,
I'm paying for it, so I better get 'em.
But I look at him and I said, listen, bro, you haven't paid for anything. And if you keep arguing with the chef, please feel free to leave my station. He then looks at me and says,
what did you say?
And he's obviously playing pretend to act like he can't hear, when even the people behind him absolutely heard me loud and clear. So I explained to him what was going on. I said to him, we sell medium rare steaks. In fact, I'm gonna make this clear for the kids in the back too. And that's when I shouted out so everybody could hear. I said, this is not a restaurant, so if you argue with the chefs, you get no beef. And I swear to God, a guy in the background says, heard, chef. This old entitled jerk walks towards the table and says to me,
I don't like you, man.
But my coworker says, but you love his meat, and I'm sure you'll come back for it. But I responded by saying, saying, "No need for that, chef, but thank you. Now give this man his rare steak." And this was all just too perfect. Now this was a week ago, and we do have an event in a few hours, so I really hope to see this entitled jerk try to pull this once again. I spoke to the head chef, and she gave me the go-ahead to take absolutely no prisoners. Yeah, there is nothing worse than some entitled jerk trying to bark orders at you, and then acts all indignant and entitled when they don't get their way like right then and there. So good for you for standing up for yourself and not dealing with this guy's garbage, because his attitude was weird from the get-go, and if he was just a little bit more polite, I'm sure this could have been a normal interaction, instead of this entitled tantrum that this guy clearly exhibited. My parents have suddenly turned on my boyfriend and have collectively decided that they don't like him. And now, after encountering their awful attitude, as well as their terrible excuses as to why they don't like him, I'm now left wondering if I need to make some kind of boundaries between them and my personal life, because right now I'm so frustrated, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So for a bit of backstory, my boyfriend and I have been together for 6 years. 4 of those years, we have lived together, gotten a dog, and had various other milestones in our lives. We have both been through a ton, seeing as though we are still in our 20s, and we've both been growing and changing. However, we've never wavered, and although we've had some tough conversations in the moment, we both know we want to be together indefinitely, and we see a future regardless of how wonky our timeline may be. Now, my boyfriend is extremely quiet and is socially awkward. He comes from a very tight-knit family. He's very kind and soft-spoken and very gentle. He doesn't say much, but when he does, it's some ridiculous joke, and he's always trying to make people laugh if he can. My parents have always liked him, or at least painted the picture that they did. My dad is very rigid, and both of them combined aren't easy to take in large quantities. They often have a lot to say about what other people are doing, but in turn don't take constructive criticism about themselves very well. Anyways, they've recently bought a vacation home and opened it up to myself and my siblings for a week. My sister and I brought our significant others, and the week went by pretty okay for the first few days. But then, halfway through the week, their demeanor towards my boyfriend changed. My dad got exceptionally snippy with him, and my mom would not acknowledge him unless absolutely necessary. As I was leaving, he went to get the car, and my mom high-fives me and says, "Oh, he's gone, you can stay," and I literally just wanted to run. I don't know why that statement bothered me so much, but it ripped me right to my core. I let it go for a while, but then by the time we left, I was pretty frustrated. Everything in my eyes had gone totally fine, and I couldn't understand what their issue was. Finally, when we got back, I let a few days pass, and over the phone, I brought it up to my mom. I said to her, "Do you guys still like my boyfriend?" She says to me, "Well, there are some things we are seeing that we absolutely do not like." Now, mind you, I'm 26 years old, and I've been living on my own since I was 21, so to be addressed that way was already a little rough. She then goes on to say, "We can discuss it in person the next time I see you." And I said to her, "No, we can discuss it soon. I'll FaceTime you on my lunch break and we can talk." Well, basically, she spent an hour telling me how she doesn't feel he wants to be a part of the family, all because of how quiet he is. Apparently, because my dad can't connect with him, he doesn't see him fit. They're also pissed off that we aren't married yet, which I can understand, but in my eyes, it's our choice and none of their business. We've both agreed that we just want to iron out the details before we put marriage on the table, but they feel like they're losing me and that I'm integrating myself into his family too much, which I also just cannot grasp. If my plan is to marry him, why wouldn't I want to do that? I love his family. They're honestly so peaceful and easy to be around, and I feel like they're jealous of that. She also spent another hour talking garbage about his family, and that was my least favorite part of the conversation. There was a lot of, "Are you happy? We just want you to be happy. Are you sure you're happy?" And you know what? I'm actually the happiest I've ever been, and I feel like they almost want me to say no. They then got my sister involved as well, and I guess they wanted her opinion on everything. Her boyfriend is super bubbly and outgoing and supposedly can do no wrong, and my parents absolutely love him. All in all, I have no clue how to proceed. I told her I was extremely happy in my relationship and that he and I are very pleased with our timeline, and we feel we are going at our own pace. Well, ever since that conversation, there's been no mention of my boyfriend. We talk daily on the phone, and not once has she asked about him or how he's doing. Now, he knows that something is up, but I don't think he knows the severity of it. He is such a good, sweet person, and it breaks my heart that they are now punishing him for no reason. This kid put so much thought into everything with my parents. He actually built my dad an axe throwing board for Christmas last year and spent like $500 total on supplies. He really does mean well, he's just a little bit awkward. I am now wanting to create boundaries with them and not allow them access to that part of my life because they have so much judgment to cast. Has anyone ever dealt with something like this before? Does it ever get better? My therapist said that I should tell them that how how they behave towards him on vacation was unacceptable, but I'm scared it will blow up and make the situation worse. What should I do? I think first of all, you need to understand that your parents do not dictate your relationship in the slightest. You know exactly what you have with your boyfriend, and your parents have no say in who you can and cannot spend time with. But also on that note, I think your therapist might be onto something. If I was in your shoes, I would be telling my parents right away that the way they treated him was inappropriate and that will not happen again. It also doesn't really seem like you defended your boyfriend in the slightest when your mom was dragging him and his family through the dirt. Like they don't have a legitimate reason not to like him. It only seems like they don't like him all because your boyfriend is like kind of shy and introverted. But if that's literally the only basis they're going off of, then they're the ones with the problem and not you. So truly, in my opinion, I think it's time to set some boundaries and say that enough is enough, because the way they're treating your boyfriend is super inappropriate and he does not deserve this kind of treatment in the slightest. I found out that my husband has been lying to his coworkers by telling them that I'm his sister and not his wife. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband, we'll call him Josh for the sake of the story, has been with me for 6 years and we've been married for 4 and we don't have any kids. We have a healthy relationship and we communicate a lot. We're also both pretty easygoing and I really love him a lot. He started working at a large accounting firm about 3 years ago, and from what he tells me, he loves it there. He's made a lot of friends through his job and he goes out with them for drinks and social events quite often, and I've been totally okay with that. I am quite introverted, so I've never been interested in meeting his colleagues or his work friends. And you know what? I haven't asked to either. I've got my own circle of friends and I'm fine with us having separate friend groups. After what happened yesterday, it's only just occurred to me that he has never actually asked me if I'd like to meet any of them or go to one of his work events. So I guess that will be important for context later on. Anyways, I'll start with what happened a few months ago that I had brushed off until now. I was at a bar with some friends for a couple of Friday after work drinks, and a guy approached me who was there with some friends. He looked slightly familiar, but I hadn't met him before. He seemed friendly enough, and then he said my name and asked me if that was right. Now, I think I must have given him some kind of confused look because he followed up by saying, "Oh, I'm Jake and I work with Josh." And it's right then that I realized I recognized him from some photos on my husband's phone. And honestly, this is where things get a bit embarrassing. I'm a bit socially awkward, and so I struggled to end the conversation, but he just kept talking at me. And I guess he was already a couple beers deep, but while he was talking, he said something like, "It's great that you guys are still so close. I haven't talked to my brother in ages." And at the time, I was thinking to myself, what are you talking about? But I just assumed that he was drunk and not making any sense, so I ignored it. He started to get a little flirty, so I turned to my friends and we left shortly after that. I didn't say anything to them about it, and it didn't seem like a big deal to me. I also decided not to tell my husband that I had met his coworker Jake, not to hide it, but because I figured the guy wouldn't even remember talking to me, and I didn't want to make it awkward for Josh at work by telling him his colleague tried to hit on me. So I just thought, no harm, no foul. But yesterday morning, I was out walking our dog Monty, and I was on my way to my regular cafe, which is in town. I was waiting in line to order, and the guy in front was an older man. He got his coffee and turned around, but stopped and looked at my dog and says, "Oh, hello, Monty." And Monty was super excited to see him apparently. And so I guessed that the guy was another colleague of Josh's, because Josh does bring the dog to work a couple of times a week. And to be honest, I thought it was sweet. So I smiled at him and I said hi. He introduced himself, and yes, I did guess correctly that he was a colleague, but then he said something like, "Aren't you a good sister walking his dog for him?" And I was so confused that I didn't even know how to react at first. So I stumbled on my words and I just said, "Oh, it's my dog." I do regret it, but I genuinely couldn't bring myself to correct him and say that I'm Josh's wife and not his sister. It was just too awkward, and I just wanted to leave because I think it was suddenly dawning on me what might have been going on. He asked me something about sharing a dog, but I was able to escape the conversation by being next in line to order my coffee, and he ended up leaving. So right now, I seriously don't know what to do, because seriously, what's happening? Do I even ask my husband about this? Part of me is just assuming or hoping that it's some kind of mistake, that he doesn't talk about me much at work, and they assume that we're related because we both have brown hair or something like that. But the thought that he has been telling his coworkers that I'm his sister makes my stomach churn. I don't even know how to broach the subject with him. So I really need some help. What would you guys do in this kind of situation? I've only told one friend what happened because it's so weird and embarrassing, and she has gone straight to thinking about how to plot his downfall. But I don't want to immediately assume the worst or ruin my marriage over something that could be nothing. What should I do? Before we go any further, the original poster actually has an update to this story. Here's what they had to say. Okay, for starters, I want to say thank you to everybody who commented commented and gave me some advice. I haven't read all of them, but I really appreciate the suggestions from everybody. In terms of a small update, Josh came home at about 2:30 last night, but he was drunk, so he just went straight to sleep, which is fine by me because having this conversation in that state just isn't going to happen. And at this point, I've just woken up, but he's still asleep. Now, the first thing I just want to clear up is that I've seen a lot of people suggesting that I have crippling social anxiety or I am severely introverted, which I suppose you could glean from the way I explain what happened, but I promise I'm not. I mean that I'm slightly introverted in that I'm not the most eager to meet lots of new people at once, especially a bunch of finance bros whose weekends consist of unending sports bar and plenty of beers, where I assume I would be mansplained about everything until my ears bleed. I suppose you could say that I'm confrontation adverse in that I'm quite laid back and prefer to keep a conversation easy and positive. I don't like it when things are awkward and correcting when people misrecognize me, so I guess it's one of those things, but I'm honestly not terrified of confrontation. Also, my husband and I do share some mutual friends. I didn't explain that well, but our lives are not entirely separate. The way he acts towards me around our mutual friends is extremely affectionate and normal, but it's only his work friends that I have never interacted with. I've also seen some people suggesting that what's going on is the equivalent to my husband being physically aggressive with me and me hopelessly wondering whether I should break up with him, or that I'm stupid for thinking my relationship was healthy when it clearly isn't. But seriously, I need people to cut me some slack. I'm a real person and this is an entirely alien and bizarre situation for me. My first reaction wasn't to assume the worst, but I do appreciate that all of you have made certain that this is a big deal. I guess I needed confirmation that the things that happened are enough proof that Josh has been purposefully lying and they weren't just mix-ups. I'm going to talk to him today and I'm going to ask him directly why he's telling his coworkers that I'm his sister. I follow the advice of writing my points down so that they don't get lost if I get emotional, and I will do my best to not let him slither out of it either, because I really hope he has some proof that his colleagues know that I'm his wife, because this scenario has seriously been stressing me out and I really just want to have it all completely resolved. Wow, that is a really bad situation to be stuck in, because what your husband is doing to you is completely intentional. Like, it doesn't take much for him to be like, oh yeah, this is my wife, this is someone I'm married to, and this is someone I care about. But instead, he's sitting there saying, oh yeah, this is my sister, and he's just lying to his coworkers for no real reason. And it really makes me question, like, why would he be acting this way? Is he like embarrassed about you or like in some way hiding you for some kind of reason? It honestly doesn't make any sense and there's just no good excuse. So hopefully this can all get worked out and you guys can figure out what's going on, because just like other people have been saying in your post, this really is a big deal and it needs to be figured out much sooner than later. My toxic entitled boss tries to get me fired by trying to blame me for things that she should have done. But instead of taking this sitting down, I decided to get some revenge by submitting all the receipts I could possibly find that blatantly proved how incompetent my boss was. And as a result, she ended up getting fired. Here's what happened. So I'm a 30-year-old female and I've been a people pleaser to a fault my entire life. I've been working in marketing for 10 plus years, and over the years, I've had my fair share of bosses who were either good, average, or just straight up sucked. But there is one in particular that stood out as completely awful. For the sake of the story, we'll call her Pamela, and she's in her 40s and was the vice president of marketing and sales for a mid-sized retailer. She started at the company a few years after I did, and if rumors were true, she was the fourth pick for the position and was simply hired so the company could appease the shareholders. I was a manager under her, and my job was to make sure the website and stores had their products merchandised properly, as well as received all their monthly sales materials, manage the advertising, and many other responsibilities. And basically, in short, I did her work and all the administrative grunt work to literally keep the department afloat. I managed all this because I had access to her email and many times sent emails on her behalf just to keep the department functioning. Pamela spent most of her time showing up at about 10 o'clock in the morning, taking business lunches, and planning company parties. I consistently questioned why she spent so much of our budget on these events when we didn't have the budget resources for any of it. So Pamela told me to take from future months' budgets to pay for the current month's overspending, meaning that at the start of every month, I had an original budget, and by the end of the month, I had to turn in an edited budget per Pamela's direction. And we did it like this to make it look as if Pamela's spending was under control. And trust me when I say this detail will be important later on, because all of this blows up in her face in a spectacular fashion. Now, I definitely made mistakes here and there being in charge of so many things, and I constantly found myself working 12-hour days, split between being in the office and working after my kid went to bed. Weekend work was also done before my family woke up and right after they went to bed. During During Pamela's first major holiday season, all of our sales were awful. Pamela kept changing her mind on the visuals for the stores, kept bringing on new advertising and PR agencies to bring in sales, even though all these agencies consisted of her personal friends, and completely ignored our buying and merchandise team's planned promotions so that she could push for her own better ones. At this point, I had been dealing with an ongoing infection that turned into sepsis, and I was eventually hospitalized. The doctors and my husband said it was due to the stress of work and that I needed to take a break. As I recovered, I realized how much I was hurting myself, my family, and even the company that I work for. Eventually, my old habits got to me, and I got on my phone and I checked mine and my boss's emails, and what I found made my blood boil. First, I got a lovely bouquet of flowers from upper management wishing me well, and I knew that Pamela organized the delivery because she sent me her favorite flowers. I went to her inbox to put the receipt in the correct folder to send to accounting when I got back, and at the top of her inbox from the past 3 days were emails clearly not related to business, and what I found in her emails was Pamela emailing her personal friends, griping how I just can't shake off this illness and get back to work. She also complained that she couldn't find any of my notes, spreadsheets, or documents for any of the work that she was technically in charge of, despite the fact that they are on a shared drive that is very clearly labeled. Finally, I found an email where she sent a friend from a previous company asking for advice on how to bring in sales and save her job. In this long thread, this old colleague asked if there was anyone managing most of the work, and of course, Pamela said I was. This colleague explained that clearly it was my mismanagement that was causing issues, and that I could be blamed if sales didn't pull through by the end of the season. Pamela then mentioned that I was in the hospital and repeated comments from her other email thread. This person said that she couldn't outright fire me because it could seem like retaliation, all because I needed to take an emergency medical leave. But if Pamela could prove I was stealing from the company or misusing company resources, then she would have grounds to have me fired and to use me as a scapegoat. Upon my return, Pamela called me into her office and said she was worried I was taking on too much and wanted to take some work off my plate. So she announced that she was taking managing the department budget off of my plate, and she asked me to only drop off a small stack of invoices to accounting. Additionally, Pamela told me under no circumstances was I allowed to talk to accounting about anything regarding budgets. Also, if I had any concerns about the department or the workload, I wasn't allowed to go to HR, and I had to discuss it directly with Pamela. And it was right then and there that I thought to myself, oh yeah, I can see exactly where this is going. Well, unfortunately for Pamela, I had built a rapport with someone who we will call Laura, who was our main accountant in the office, and Laura always said that she would do everything in her power to help me should I ask. So, knowing this, I grabbed the stack of invoices off of Pamela's desk to give it to accounting. I also added the email threads I read while I was in the hospital and the current unedited budget that Pamela hadn't touched yet for the month. I also found in my filing cabinet the hard copies of old budgets with Pamela's handwriting on what numbers to change to balance our budget. And finally, I added an email from our first round of budget adjustments where Pamela basically said she was going to put someone else in my job if I wouldn't do what she wanted me to do. So I walked and dropped off the invoices to accounting when I bumped into Laura. She brought up invoices and I sternly looked at her and I said Pamela is the only one in our department that Laura is allowed to talk to about our budget and invoices. Laura saw the suspiciously thick folder on her desk, gave me a firm nod, and lovingly kicked me out of her office. Well, within the week, Pamela was fired. From what I understand, she has been continually job hopping for the past few years. The CEO and HR brought me in to personally apologize for everything I went through and gave me a paid 1-week vacation to take at my discretion. But given other issues with this business, I ended up leaving after another year, which then brings me to today. I am once again a manager for sales and marketing. I have a wonderful boss who trusts my business decisions and backs me up on practically everything, and we are hiring my team for me to solely manage and direct. Well, today, I looked through the applicants and I found Pamela's resume sitting amongst dozens of others. I stared at her name, wondering how many other people share her name, but upon review, I realized that it's her. She definitely fell down the corporate ladder, with the vice president of our old company being the highest title she ever earned. And to no surprise, she embellished her achievements, claiming the work I managed as her own, and claimed that she generated an 87% sales growth during the holiday season at our previous company. Well, as a people pleaser who firmly believes in giving everyone a chance, it has never been so satisfying to disqualify someone from being hired in my life. Okay, Pamela seriously was a bad boss, and she was absolutely going to throw you right under the bus at the earliest convenience. Like, that is so toxic, especially considering she's the one that caused caused all these problems. She not only had you changing the numbers to fit her own personal narrative, but she also basically demanded it and said, oh, you're gonna get fired if you can't do this. So I just love the fact that you fought back and worked behind her back to make sure that she couldn't try that with you. Because people like this absolutely deserve to be put in their place. And thankfully, your former job was able to do that to Pamela. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for sending our wedding band home mid-party after I found out that my ex is one of the members? Because right now my wife is incredibly angry with me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So we got married yesterday, and when we arrived at the reception venue, everything was already in place. But it was not until we were called upon for our first dance that I recognized the singer from the band to be my ex-girlfriend from high school. We haven't talked for over 15 years, and my wife doesn't know much about my exes. We just never talked about past relationships other than saying that I've had maybe 3 exes in total. During the dance, I couldn't help but focus on the fact that she is up there on the stage. I know my wife was the one in charge for the music for the day, but she never told me what she booked, nor did I ever ask about what it is. I asked her what made her choose that band, and she said she went through an entertainment agency and saw the ex's portfolio, which was good, and it was within our budget, so she just went ahead and booked them. Well, I told her the singer was my ex from high school, and that I'm not comfortable with her performing. She said that's an odd coincidence, and told me, well, why is this an issue? It happened so long ago. I told her yes, but I'm still weirded out by it. My wife then said that it's just music, and not to make such a big deal out of this since the band is doing a good job, but I told her that I want to talk with the band. Well, my ex recognized me, and she was being very professional about it. She said she didn't know it was going to be my wedding, and only knew when she got to the venue for prep and saw some of our other mutual friends. Well, I told her to finish up in the next 30 minutes and then to leave. And at this point, she looks shocked, and so does her band members. I then reassured them that it's not because of the performance. One of the band members then said that even though they were being asked to leave early, since they already rocked up and this is a change of mind on the day, there will be no refunds. But I told them I won't be pursuing a refund. Well, I then told my wife that the band was leaving, and she was absolutely livid. She kept asking me why it is such a big deal because of an ex, and asked me if I still had feelings for her. I said no, that's absurd. But I felt uncomfortable that I was reminded of my past relationship at literally the worst time possible. She told me I am wasting her money, but I told her we could get another DJ that we could get on the spot with the help of the venue in which we fully paid for. She then told me that's just another waste of money because my feelings apparently are too fragile and that I can't see the bigger picture. After the band left, I went straight to the venue manager to try and sort things out. And long story short, it all got sorted out. The DJ did a good job, the guests seemed to have a good time and didn't even notice, but my wife was not enjoying it at all. And after everything was over, she went straight to bed at the hotel. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Yes, you are absolutely the jerk. You literally lit your wedding on fire, all because of an ex from high school. We're talking somebody from 15 years ago, my man. Like, why would you blow up your wedding all because of an ex that you don't even talk to? Like, what is your problem? Why would you do that? Your wife is right 100% because you not only wasted her money, but you also wasted everybody's time. Like, I can only imagine how fragile your weird ego is to try and pull something like this on your wedding day. Like, if anything's absurd about this situation, it's the way that you reacted. You very easily could have been like, okay, that's my ex from 15 years ago, whatever, and just enjoyed your wedding with your wife. But here you are being like, no, my ex from 15 years ago can't be here. My only choice is to kick the band out of the venue and find someone else, I don't know, right then and there. That is literally crazy to me. And your wife is 100% right. This literally doesn't take the big picture into account at all. So yes, you are absolutely the jerk, and there was no reason to ruin your wedding in the way that you did, because what you did is unacceptable, and your wife is completely justified for being upset. Am I the jerk for refusing to do Thanksgiving this year after literally doing it for the past decade for my entire family? Because right now, I am feeling very burnt out, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, all names in this story are fake. So I'm a 40-year-old female, and I have 6 sisters, 2 older sisters and 4 younger ones, and their ages range from 47 all the way down to 32. We've always been a close-knit family, and for the past decade, I've taken on the responsibility of hosting Thanksgiving at my house. I enjoy having everybody over, but it's a lot of work, especially since we all have at least 2 kids each, and all of them within the age group of 5 to 15. It is absolute chaos, but joyous chaos. My husband helps out, but the majority of the planning, cooking, and organizing falls on me. Well, this year I decided that I needed a break. Life has been hectic and I'm feeling burnt out. Between work, taking care of my kids, and other responsibilities, I'm just not up for the task of hosting a big family gathering. So I suggested that one of my sisters take over hosting Thanksgiving this year. I brought this up in our family group chat, thinking that it would be a reasonable request, while also giving them plenty of time to plan. However, my 2 older sisters, by the names of Sarah and Emily, were not happy with the idea. Sarah has a busy job and a smaller house, so she feels she can't accommodate everyone comfortably. Emily argued that she's been dealing with a lot of stress lately and doesn't have the energy to host. They both suggested that since I've been doing it for so long, I should just keep the tradition going, especially since my house is the most spacious one and I'm the one who knows how to do it right. Now, my younger sisters were more understanding, but they also hesitated to take on the responsibility. My younger sister Jessica said that she would be willing to help out more with the preparations if I hosted, but she wasn't confident about hosting the entire event herself. The other younger sister offered similar compromises, but no one was willing to take on the full load. After some back and forth, I stood firm and I said that I really need someone else to host this year. I suggested that we could even make it a potluck to ease the burden, but Sarah and Emily were still upset. They accused me of being selfish and abandoning a family tradition that I've upheld for years. They argued that I'm the one with the most experience and that Thanksgiving just wouldn't be the same if I didn't host it. And now there's tension in the family, with my older sisters feeling like I'm letting them down. I feel like I've done my fair share over the years, and it's not unreasonable to ask for a break. But at the same time, I understand that my older sisters are also under a lot of pressure, and that hosting Thanksgiving is a big deal for our family. So am I the jerk for refusing to host Thanksgiving this year after literally doing it for the past decade? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think anybody who's upset about this is just lazy and incredibly entitled. I mean, it is so convenient the way they're talking about this. They're calling you selfish because you're not hosting something that they don't want to do. They're too lazy to do it themselves, so they would rather you be stuck with all this hard work so that they can reap the benefits of not doing anything to help out. Like, that's all this says to me personally, and that is honestly how I feel about that. So no, you're not the jerk for turning them down and saying, look, I don't have time for this. Because from the sounds of it, it really seems like this has been a one-man show for over a decade. And in my opinion, that is completely unfair. My entitled mother-in-law thinks the family vacation is only for her, as she has literally taken over all of our plans and throws a hissy fit anytime we try to do anything else. Here's what happened. Okay, to give some information, my husband, my mother-in-law, and myself traveled to a southwest state to visit my brother-in-law. We're staying at his small apartment to save some money, and my mother-in-law, from the planning stages of this trip, has been trying to dictate everything. When we get up, when we eat, and what we're gonna do. Where we are going is a very food-popular place, and going out to eat is considered one of the highlights of traveling here. But she wanted to eat at home 2 out of the possible 3 meals per day. But when we arrived, she made it clear she only wanted to go out to eat once during the trip. And it's not even an expensive place, but a place where one full meal is like $14. So she wants to go grocery shopping at a place like Walmart or even Costco. And this is all for a 4-day family trip. Well, we finally convinced her to go to Walmart, and as we get there, she starts loading up the cart with food items that she wants. And they're all the organic, high-priced, healthy food items. She even demands that we have eggs in the morning and salads during the evening. Now, is she gonna foot this bill? No, of course not. She wanted to split the bill with us. Quite literally, none of the food in the cart was for the rest of us, but she wanted us to split the bill with her. Every time we made a plan to do something, she would interject and say, oh, but I want to do this first. Now, let me just tell you that after hearing a full-grown adult say I wanna in a whiny voice, you just about want to pull your hair out. The second day, she wanted to work out with a son she was visiting, but he didn't want to because he wanted to work out alone. So she decided she was going to take a 3-hour walk in the 105-degree weather with only 20 ounces of water and no sunscreen. So after 1 hour, we had to go on a search and rescue for her because she was most definitely going to suffer from a bad sunburn or being dehydrated. Now, not only did she literally walk off to throw a hissy fit, but she delayed the actual plans my brother-in-law made for the day. Now, our third day hasn't happened yet, but my brother-in-law wanted to make me feel included, and asked what I would like to do since the day was wide open. I suggested a fun tourist attraction, and both him and my husband were eager to do it. But before we started to figure out the timing of it, my mother-in-law spoke up and said that she wanted to go take photos first. She wanted to work out, cook, and go swimming and get some coffee. But once she finished off her list of demands, she said, but you know, whatever you guys want to do. But no ma'am, apparently it's not whatever we want to do, because you get pissy when things aren't going your way. I will never travel with her again, nor will I ever spend more than 3 hours with her. Visiting my brother-in-law was supposed to be fun and relaxing, but she is treating this vacation like a to-do list and making sure all her boxes are ticked off first before anyone else. And at this point, I seriously just want to go home. Wow, that sounds incredibly obnoxious, and I don't blame you for being upset. She literally has ruined the vacation. She took this trip and she said, oh yeah, we're gonna do it my way. Like if I was on vacation and someone was like, oh yeah, we're gonna eat food from Walmart every single day. Like I would be so pissed off it's not even funny. This is one of the few times where you get to go out and just like spend some money and buy some food that's unique to the area. This is not the time to like save money, especially if you plan for this trip. So truly, I hope you make it through the rest of this vacation, and at least now you know that you will never travel with your mother-in-law ever again, because the way she's acting is incredibly immature, and I would not want to deal with that if I was in your shoes. Am I the jerk for asking a woman at my gym to tone it down, all because I was distracted by her during my workout? Here's what happened. I'm a 32-year-old male, and I'm a software engineer who moved to the United States from India 6 years ago. I've been going to the same gym for a year, and I typically like to keep to myself, focus on my workout, and then leave. But recently, my gym experience has become more complicated. There are two Polish twins who, for the sake of the story, we will call Carly and Lena. They're 29 years old, and they also go to the gym. They're both software engineers too, so we've had some good conversations between sets. They're really smart, and over time, we started spotting each other and occasionally working out together. It's been nice having people to chat with and help out, and I genuinely enjoy their company. Well, this is when another woman comes in who we will call Renee, who is someone that could easily be a fitness model. She's got a body that turns heads, and she absolutely knows it. Renee wears tiny shorts and sports bras that leave little to the imagination, especially with her very prominent features, if you know what I mean. Now, I'm not here to shame anyone for what they wear, but Renee's workout routine seems designed to show off her body. She's doing deep squats, leg lifts, all right in front of where I'm lifting. It is incredibly distracting, and I found myself losing focus, missing some reps, and generally just feeling uncomfortable. After a particularly bad workout where I literally couldn't concentrate at all, I decided to say something. I approached Renee and, as politely as I could, asked if she could tone it down a bit because it was hard for me to focus. Well, Renee looked at me like I was crazy and basically told me that if I couldn't handle it, that was my problem and not hers. I felt awkward, so I just apologized and then I walked away. The next time I saw Carly and Lena, they were acting different, less chatty and kind of distant. I didn't think much of it at first, but it continued on for several days. Eventually, Lena pulled me aside and asked why I said something to Renee. Apparently, Renee told them about our conversation and implied that I was frustrated and projecting it onto her. Lena didn't say it outright, but it was clear that she thought I was out of line. She mentioned that as a woman, they are used to men staring and making them uncomfortable in the gym, and my comment might have added to Renee's discomfort. I felt like the bad guy for just trying to get my workout in peace. Now I'm in a weird place. Carly and Lena, who I genuinely respect, seem to think I'm some kind of creep, and Renee has only become more present in my line of sight during workouts. I've thought about switching gyms, but that feels like I'm running away from the problem. But at the same time, I can't shake the feeling that I crossed a line. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, what is going on right now? This might be the most out of touch story I've ever read in my life. Like, this goes off the charts on the delusional scale because the original poster is 100% the jerk. Here's a fun fact that I think everybody can agree with. Women are allowed to work out in gyms. They're allowed to do squats and lunges and anything else that anybody else would be doing. They have every right to be there in their workout clothes and get a workout done just like the original poster. So it is genuinely crazy to me that the original poster would be like, wow, Renee, you're showing off just a little bit too much. You're making it distracting for me. I can't focus because of your body. Like, seriously, dude, you are the problem in this situation. You are 100% in the wrong, and the fact that you went up to Renee and said, can you tone it down a little bit? Like, that is so out of line, it's not even funny. Because seriously, you are being so gross and demeaning towards this woman. You're being blatantly misogynistic, and I think you really need to like self-reflect on this situation. So seriously, if you are so attracted to this woman that you just can't get any work done, then you are the problem, not her. She hasn't done anything anything to you other than exist in the same space as you. And if you really can't control your feelings and get your workout done, then you should be the one to figure your crap out instead of going to Renee and be like, wow, this is your fault. Look at what you're doing to me. Because if you can't have even like the slightest amount of self-control, then in my opinion, you definitely should not even be in this gym in the first place. An entitled Karen demands that she's given a discount at a convenience store after she doesn't bring enough money to pay for her stuff. But after the clerk shuts her down and denies this request, this entitled Karen calls up her husband and lies to him by saying that she's being held hostage against her will. And I'm honestly still blown away by this entitled Karen. Here's what happened. Okay, so I just witnessed quite possibly the most entitled interaction of my life. I'm a 40-year-old female, and I was at my local convenience store talking to the owner's daughter as she needed help with homework and was asking everyone if they could help her understand it. And since I'm there almost every single day, they know me very well. Well, in walks the entitled Karen of this story, probably around my age, and she begins gathering items and dumping them on the counter, completely disregarding other customers who were already at it. This goes on for a few minutes and then she goes to pay. At this point, the clerk is serving someone else, and this entitled Karen just interrupts the transaction completely. She says to him, "My items are on the counter, so you shouldn't be serving anyone else, as I'm clearly waiting to be served." Now, I always believe that in order to be served in a store, you had to be physically present in line or at the counter, but maybe I'm wrong. The man being served smiles at this woman and states that he's buying smokes and needs about 30 seconds to complete his transaction and that she can wait in the meantime. Well, this led to much huffing and puffing from the woman, and then she turns to me and says, "Can you believe the audacity of some people?" And at this point, I couldn't help but giggle before I replied. I said, "No, but I do really appreciate the irony." And trust me, she did not get the joke. By now, the guy has left, and the clerk is ringing up her items and putting them into bags. He finishes up and tells her the total, which was about $30-something. Now, apparently, this entitled Karen only had $25 with her, so she told this guy he will take $25 because that is literally all she has. But he tells her that he will willingly take the $25, provided that she removes sufficient items to ensure that it covers her bill. And when he said this lady went on a tantrum that I've honestly never seen before in my life. She started shouting, "I need everything. You can't deprive me of my needs. Who do you think you are? I am calling my husband." And when she said that, the clerk didn't miss a beat. He replied by saying, "Well, make sure he brings his wallet." Now, the kid and I have completely forgotten about the homework, and we're now enjoying the theater production unfolding in front of us. Well, out comes her phone, and she's scrolling furiously, all while repeating, "Oh, just you wait until he gets here." And again, the clerk doesn't miss a beat. He says to her, "I have no other choice but to wait. My shift doesn't end for another 3 hours." She then literally stomps her feet, all while shouting, "But it's only $10. And I'm almost at the point of having to put my fist in my mouth to stifle my laugh. This woman then calls her husband and puts the phone on speaker. And once he answers, she puts on this really pitiful whiny voice. She says to him, "Baby, I'm at this store, and the clerk is holding me and 2 other females hostage. You need to come and rescue us." But this guy must be all too familiar with his wife's antics because he answers in probably the most apathetic way you could possibly imagine. He says to her, "You can't really be held hostage and be allowed to use your phone. So either you didn't have enough money or you're trying to buy alcohol without an ID." Well, at this point, I didn't stifle the laughter, and now this entitled Karen had 3 people openly laughing at her. And then she sheepishly admitted that it was the former. Her husband then says to her, "If you leave the chips, candy, and soda behind that you don't need and that we have more than enough of in the house, I'm sure you'll have enough money." This entitled Karen then started to protest, but her husband said, "I've told you about doing this kind of stuff. Say one more word and I'm canceling your birthday." She then stomped her foot again as she hung up the phone and told the clerk to remove the suggested item so that she could cover the bill. And I'm honestly still amazed by this entitled Karen's audacity. Wow, talk about not only entitled but super rude. She seriously was like, "Oh, I don't have enough money. You're just gonna have to take what I give you." It's like, no, that's not gonna happen. I'm not gonna risk my job for your stupidity. So honestly, good for that clerk for standing his ground, because the way this Karen was acting was completely out of line. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for asking my roommate and her party guests to leave the living room as they had kept me up until 2 o'clock in the morning and I needed to get up early? Here's what happened. I'm a 22-year-old female and my 20-year-old roommate is having her birthday, and she told me that she would have some friends over, they would go out, and then a couple of friends would stay the night, and I was going to be carry out the duration of the party, so I couldn't celebrate with her. Well, I got home at around midnight and they weren't home. I went to bed, and it is important to note that my room is considered the den of the house, so it's off the kitchen and living room area, and it has a window to the living room. My roommate and her 7 friends got home shortly after, and they started cleaning the kitchen. Well, I came out of my room, and I asked if they minded leaving it for tomorrow, and they apologized and said they didn't realize I was home yet. Well, they didn't stop cleaning the kitchen, which then took them about 45 minutes, and after that, they started playing video games in the living room. I could tell they were trying to be quiet, but even whispering, I can hear every word, and the lights were shining directly into my room. After about an hour of video games, I came out again, and I asked if they were going to bed soon, explaining that I needed to be up at 8 o'clock in the morning, especially since it was now 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, they said yes, and turned off one of the lights, but kept playing video games for another 40 minutes. I came out again at this point, and I reiterated that I really needed to get some sleep, and if they were going to hang out, could they at least do so in my roommate's room? And at this point, they either left or started getting ready for bed. It's a shared apartment and her birthday, so I don't know if my annoyance was valid. I mean, we don't have an agreed upon curfew. Also, the reason they were in the living room and not my roommate's room is because that is where the TV is. But it may be important to know that I am the one who owns the TV. We haven't lived together very long, but she has her friends over a lot, and this isn't the first time she has disrupted my sleep, and it probably won't be the last. So am I the jerk for asking them to stay out of the living room? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk for telling them to keep quiet, because you have to get up early the next morning, and they kept you up all the way until what, 2 o'clock in the morning? Like, I'm sorry, that is inappropriate and that is not okay. Your roommate should have taken all of her friends into her room, close the door, and then keep it down, relatively speaking. But for them to be making all that noise all at your expense, that in my opinion is completely inappropriate, and I don't blame you for getting upset in the slightest. Am I the jerk for refusing to meet my biological mother in person after I matched up with her on a DNA testing site? Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old male, and I was adopted when I was 6 years old. I've always felt incredibly lucky because my adoptive parents, who were in their late 20s when they took me in, have been nothing short of amazing. They've loved and supported me as if I were their own flesh and blood, and I've never felt like anything was missing in my life because of being adopted. Growing up, I had very minimal details about my adoption. I know that I was removed from my biological family by social services due to neglect, but honestly nothing specific. I don't remember anything about my life before I was adopted. Well, recently, out of simple curiosity, I decided to sign up for one of those home DNA testing kits. I wasn't looking for a reunion or any deep connection, but I just wanted to know more about my genetic history, like why I was removed from my biological family, and if there were any medical issues I should be aware of. Honestly, I didn't expect to find anyone closely related to me, so it felt like a low-stakes way to get some answers. About 8 weeks ago, after sending off the kit, I remembered to check the results, and to my surprise, I matched with my biological mother. She had sent me a message saying that she was overjoyed that I had done the test, and that she desperately wanted to reconnect with me and the rest of my biological family. She mentioned that she's thought of me every single day, that I was always loved, and even that I have a biological little brother who is very excited to meet me, which is something I didn't even know. Her message was really emotional, and to be honest, it was completely overwhelming. To me, she is a complete stranger, and reading those words didn't stir anything in me other than discomfort. I spent a lot of time crafting a thoughtful response to my biological mother, explaining that while I appreciate her message, I wasn't interested in forming a relationship with her or any of my other biological family members. I made it clear that my reason for doing the DNA test was purely for information. I wanted to understand my past, maybe get some medical history, and learn why I was removed, but that was it. I then apologized if my actions gave her the wrong impression. My biological mother read my message and replied, saying that she'd be willing to give me all the information that I wanted, but only if I agreed to meet her at a cafe to discuss our relationship further. Well, I straight up refused, telling her that I wasn't comfortable with an in-real-life meeting. I offered a phone call as a compromise, but emphasized that I just wanted the information, and then for the both of us to move on with our lives. Well, she outright refused to provide any information unless I agreed to meet with her in person and discuss our relationship. I talked to my best friend about this, and she actually sided with my biological mother, saying that I was being unfair. She argued that by signing up for the DNA site, I had essentially opened the door to this kind of situation, and that refusing to meet with my biological mother now is like playing mind games and leading them on. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk, and let me just start off by saying that your best friend is an idiot. You did not sign up to have any kind of like doors open in your life. You did the whole DNA test in the first place so that you could get get information about your medical history and not reconnect with your deadbeat mother. Like seriously, she neglected you and then congratulations, you went off to somebody else. And thank God that you did, because it sounds like your actual family is really good for you. So no, you didn't sign up to have this door open in your life. And also, why is this DNA kit allowing people to message you that you're matching up with? Is there no way of doing this privately without being like, oh yeah, you're related to such and such in like Missouri or something like that? I don't know, maybe that's just me and maybe I'm just a really private individual, but if I was in the original poster's shoes, I would really want some kind of privacy to move forward with this. Also, it is incredibly toxic that your biological mother is refusing to give you any information until you two discuss your relationship. But it's like, wait a second, what relationship is this lady even talking about? She clearly wasn't a good mom, and that's that. And the fact that she wouldn't even find some kind of compromise in having a phone call to have this discussion, but like demanded that you be there in person, makes me think that she's trying to set you up to like guilt trip you into her family, and that is absolutely not okay. So no, I don't think you're the jerk, and I think you are absolutely in the right for denying this request. Am I the jerk for telling my family that me and my wife will no longer be going to their monthly family dinners? Because after the awful treatment they showed towards my wife, I've decided that my wife is going to be my priority, and these people will never talk to her like that ever again. Here's what happened. Ever since my dad was a kid, our family has done monthly family dinners, and these are nicer ones than your average family dinner. It's something our family did when my siblings and I were kids as well. We'd have grandparents over and we'd all have a nice dinner together. When my siblings and I grew up, we still did it, only instead of what happened before, where branches broke off over time and did their own thing, they decided we should include partners and spouses, and our kids as a whole. By the time I was 19, the family had decided they would take turns hosting each month to lessen the burden. My wife was excited to be part of them at first. We started during our relationship, and I did the cooking to start, and then she took over after a while because she wanted to. My family had seemingly got along with my wife before this point, but they were overly harsh of her cooking, with the exception of my two younger siblings. She tried to make them happy, but no dice. I told them that they could be kinder, but they said that she should cook better or just cook something different. But my wife didn't make anything they don't eat. But even still, nothing was right. So eventually, she grew frustrated and grew very suspicious. So we hosted a couple of months ago, and I told my wife we were going to pretend I did the cooking, just to try and see what is going on. She told me that she felt like they just weren't fond of her food, but I pointed out nobody had the same amount of complaints as them, and they even criticized the steak and potatoes that they all seemed to go crazy for. She went along with a plan, and when my family thought that I cooked it, guess what? They absolutely loved it. They said it was so good my wife had decided to let a real talent take over, that it was so nice to have something a little bit different, and all this other lovely stuff. But my younger brother and sister were not fooled, and instead of saying anything, they enjoyed watching the rest of the family dig a hole. When the rest of my family heard it was my wife's food and not mine, they tried so hard to backtrack on all the nice stuff. The rest of the dinner went into a tense silence, and my wife's eyes were opened. I told her I was done with these dinners and she was my priority. She felt a little bad, so I told her that sometimes we could still have dinners with my younger brother and sister. And honestly, it's less stress anyways. When we didn't show up to last month's dinner or for this one, my parents and siblings started asking questions. I told them each we weren't going again, but missing two made it sink in. They told me we need to be there, and I said never again. My wife doesn't deserve their disrespect, and I told them they ruined what they wanted by being absolute jerks to her. They said I was overreacting, making very relationship-harming choices, and treating them badly for simply having an issue with my wife's food. They also said to think of future kids and how they'll miss out. Some of it also got to my wife a little bit, which I've tried to reassure her about. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk, but your family and anybody else who's criticizing your wife, they are absolutely the jerk. Because this clearly is not about her cooking skills at all. They clearly just don't like your wife for some kind of reason, and they're only going after her to try and make her feel bad. I mean, you proved your point right then and there by being like, oh yeah, I made the food tonight, but your wife is actually the person who put it all together. And then they try to backtrack and be like, well, we don't actually like it. It's like, what are you talking about? What is wrong with you people? There's clearly some kind of like secret feelings here, and it is so inappropriate that this is the way they choose to act. So no, I don't blame you for not going back to those stupid dinners, because they were clearly just a chance for them to take shots at your wife. And if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. My fiance purposefully used a laundry detergent that I am definitely allergic to and causes me to have many bodily issues. So as a result, I decided to change my will so that he would get nothing that I own if I were to expire because of his negligence. Here's what happened. My fiance and I recently bought a house together, and we got basic things from his family as housewarming gifts. His grandmother gifted us a huge package of laundry detergent, but here is where the problem starts. I am, and used to be, highly allergic against most laundry detergents. I'm not talking about some uncomfortable itchiness or whatever, but stuff like vomiting, diarrhea, losing my eyesight temporarily, and possibly losing consciousness. And I have been hospitalized for this multiple times already. We are currently using 2 brands that I'm not allergic to, and he keeps complaining that they don't smell that good, which might be true, they aren't really fragrant, and I know he used to drown his clothing in fabric softener just to make them smell nice. I offered to slowly start taking new laundry detergents because he keeps complaining and those 2 aren't easily accessible in his home country, but definitely not in the foreseeable future, as I am 8 months pregnant and very afraid of the possible consequences. Well, he agreed and I thought the topic was done, but then his brother gifted us baby clothing and my fiance kept commenting on how good they smelled and how badly he wants our clothing to smell like this. I then sorted through them, and after I was around halfway done, I noticed that I felt kind of off. My hands felt weird, my body felt wrong, so I washed every body part that touched those clothes, and I refused to touch them without gloves. So he definitely knows that I'm still allergic against most detergents. Well, he still decided to use the gifted laundry detergent on our towels, and I didn't notice until I started folding them and putting them away. My hands started to get hot and kind of numb and really itchy, and at first, I was afraid that I am now allergic against one of the safe ones until I noticed the gifted one was opened and kind of shoved into the corner, and our other 2 are just opened and readily available, and I just don't get it. I texted him and I asked him if he used the gifted laundry detergent for anything, and he responded back by saying, "Yes, what's the big deal?" I told him that it's not funny, and he's potentially playing with the life of our unborn son and mine, and why he thought that now of all times is the right time to test my allergies again. He then called me a drama queen and ignored me after that. So, in response, I changed my will. My fiance gets nothing now, neither my part of the house nor my other assets. Everything goes to my son, with my family as trustees until he is of age. If something were to happen to both my son and me, my cousins will be the sole inheritors. My fiance was originally meant to be the trustee with different guidelines to make my son's life and his pretty comfortable. So I trashed the old will. I sent the new version to my lawyer to make him look over it and plan to get it to a notary as soon as possible. So am I overreacting for changing my will? What should I do? Okay, I don't think you're totally overreacting here, but I do think the bigger problem here is your fiance. How is he not taking your allergy seriously? Like, this just doesn't make any sense to me, and there's no good reason for him to be like, wow, what's the big deal? You're being a drama queen. It's like, buddy, do you want her to expire right then and there and possibly risk your baby in the process? Either this guy really just doesn't care about you, or he is so stupid that he doesn't realize the ramifications of his actions. Because this clearly sounds very serious, and what you're describing literally sounds like an allergic reaction waiting to happen. So no, I don't blame you for changing your will if something does happen to you, but I think the bigger problem is with your fiance, because if he is not going to take this seriously, especially with your life possibly being at risk, then in my opinion, something absolutely has to change. Am I the jerk for telling my parents that they owe my husband a real and heartfelt apology after they offended him in a way that I will never accept? Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I met my husband, who we will call James, in high school. He was a boy with a bad reputation for dumb stuff, and by dumb stuff, I mean not stuff that he did, but stuff that he didn't do. Stuff like going home or having an adult around him. His mom was an addict who didn't let him come home before midnight on any given night, so he would spend his time in different places, which made adults think poorly of him. By the time people realized it was because he had a crappy mother, they judged him for her actions. My parents were some of those judgmental people, and they would see him out past dark and then make comments. And you know what? They were awful when James and I started dating. I told them they consider themselves Christian and should be more understanding and welcoming of someone who didn't have a good home life, but they would say he wasn't trying, like he could do anything about his mom. They judged him for not going to college. They deemed him lazy for not going, even though he held a job until he was 14 and with the help of a couple that he'd worked for, decided to go to trade school instead. My parents were so awful about it that we didn't even talk for an entire year. Then they reached out via my siblings to apologize to me, and they appeared to accept James and realized that they had been wrong about him. Now, James always got along with my siblings, but he started to get along with my parents too, and it was nice. We then got married 2 years ago, and we welcomed our first baby together in June. But last month we had a big fight. They showed that they kept their opinions to themselves for this long, but they never saw James as a good person. They always saw him as trash. And it all started because James was alone with the baby for an entire day, and and they were horrified that I trusted him to watch our child without me there. They spewed such hateful things about James that just weren't true. He is an amazing dad and husband. He's not his mother, and he has never been in trouble with the law. So the fact that they spoke about him like he was some kind of criminal, I mean, that really pissed me off. I then kicked them out and I told them I was done with them. Now, we are still good with my siblings, which is where this post is taking us. We started talking Christmas, and James and I said that we would host them. Well, my mom was trying to get my siblings to ask me if I'd come to Christmas dinner at their house with a baby, and it was then that one sibling said that James and I were hosting. Upon learning that, my mom took this sibling's phone and called me and asked me how I could leave them uninvited, but I told her that if they wanted to be invited to anything ever again, they need to truly reflect on their actions and words and make a real and heartfelt apology to James. And that is the only way. It has to be real to him and not to me. And then I hung up on my mom. My parents are now claiming that I'm trying to blackmail them, which I don't think they truly know what that means. And they sent a text, which I assume is from my mom, accusing me of being disrespectful of my parents and saying that I can't demand an apology. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Nope, you are definitely not the jerk. The way your parents are acting is so out of line. They seriously want to try and look at James and be like, oh yeah, you're an awful person, and then freak out when he's watching his own kids, as if the original poster has to be there to make sure he doesn't mess it up. Like, these people even know James's living situation as a kid, and they knew that his mom was a complete deadbeat, and they still want to equate that to him in some kind of way? Like, what are we talking about? He hasn't done anything. He's literally the victim of having an awful upbringing, and it's all stuff that he could not control. So the fact that all these years later they're still trying to hold it over his head, that is crazy to me, and there is no good reason for that. So no, you are not the jerk, and this is absolutely necessary, especially if I was in your shoes. Because if someone's going to disrespect my significant other like that, then they had better apologize if they ever hope to see me or my spouse ever again. An entitled jerk tries to cut past everybody at passport control, as he felt his flight was more important than everybody else's. But after taking a red eye just to get where we were at, the over 200 people in line decided that this was not going to happen, as we all started shouting and shaming this guy for ever think of cutting in line. And I've never been more satisfied to watch someone get shamed. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was waiting in the passport line in Iceland, where a lot of flights land very early in the morning, and they have a short layover all before connecting to a new flight. Me and so many others got off our flight that landed at 6:30 in the morning, waiting in passport control, and then had to make a connecting flight that was leaving at 7:20 in the morning. The non-European side of the passport line had nearly 200 plus people waiting in line, and it was going about as fast as it could. And that is incredibly slow, and that's just the reality of it. At 6:30 in the morning, most people took their tiredness and knew the best bet was to wait in line and hope the flight waits for most of its passengers, or just quietly accepts that that connection isn't going to happen. Well, that is except for one entitled family. At the back of the line, this one man goes nearly to the front and pesters this half-awake 20-year-old kid about cutting in front of him because apparently his flight is leaving soon. But it's like, yeah, no kidding, everybody's is. The kid says sure, and I don't blame him. It is just too early to argue. This line cutter then waves to the back and shouts out, "He said we can go in front of him," and 6 other entitled people, maybe his family, come striding their way up to the front of the line. But right at that moment, there was an absolute uproar of everybody around them. People started screaming at them, asking what they think they're doing, and demanding that they go back to where they were and that they are not special. Now, this line cutter tried to reason his way and say to everybody, "Oh, but we have a connection that leaves at 7:30. But the resounding response was everybody saying, "Yeah, we all do too." And it was honestly so poetic. It was gratifying in real time to see this entitled man look around and see 200 plus people in the exact same situation as him, and that he indeed was not very special. He finally sheepishly waved his family back to get back in his old spot at the back of the line. I finally made it through passport control, and I made it to my New York flight at around 7 o'clock, and my European partner was able to get to the gate a little bit quicker and beg the people at the front desk to hold the gate and wait for me there. And I was one of the last ones on the flight. I was in the front third of the passport line, while the line cutters were way behind me. So I don't know if they made their flight or not, but regardless, it was definitely entertaining. Yeah, I can't stand when people try this crap, where they're like, "Oh yeah, can I cut in front of you?" And then when someone says yes, they try to bring in a whole group of people in front of them. Like, if it's just one person, I'm not going to care in the slightest. But the fact that there was an entire family and he really tried to slip past everybody, like, that part alone would have driven me nuts, and I would have been like, oh no, that is definitely not happening. So good for you and the rest of the people in that line for not taking that for a second, because that kind of behavior, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate. If you like Am I the Jerk? Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for making my in-laws stay in a hotel after they surprised us on our family vacation? Here's what happened. I'm a 37-year-old female and I took a beach vacation with my husband and our 3 kids. We also invited his sister, husband, and 2 kids, as we had a detached bedroom from the main house and we genuinely like hanging out with them. I told her we wanted to keep it small this year since we have a new baby and I'm pretty fresh postpartum, so I didn't want to make it too stressful. While we were at the beach, we see my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, their stepson, and his girlfriend all pull up. This is a 3-hour drive from where we live, and they came to surprise us at the beach since we haven't seen the stepson in 2 months. My sister-in-law said that they've been planning this for weeks, and she gave them the mile marker. Now, this was a cool surprise, but afterwards, they expected to stay with us in our 1-bedroom, 1-bath rental house with no real doors and only sliding doors. They had no plans for lodging or food, so we had to get to work to make dinner, which really was fine because I had packed extra food. Due to space constraints, I put the baby down for a nap in the restroom, which is also where we had to put the 2 pack-and-plays. When I went back to check on him a little later, the stepson and his girlfriend were in the transparent glass shower together, steps away from my 3-month-old baby. I then went back to the kitchen and I told my sister-in-law that they cannot stay with us, but my husband told them that they could stay because he is out of touch with what that would actually mean. Literally, we're talking 6 adults and 2 toddlers sharing 1 restroom where 2 babies are sleeping. I then told her what I saw with the stepson and the girlfriend in the shower, again reminding her that it's too many people going in and out of the restroom with 2 kids already asleep in there. Well, she understood and started looking up hotels. Now, at this point, the girlfriend was already scoping out the couch, and she really could have slept there, but after wrestling 2 babies to sleep in the restroom and my 4-year-old to sleep in the actual bed, the couch was the only place I could sit and have a glass of wine at the end of the night in peace. After getting a hotel room, they stayed at the beach house until midnight playing poker on the patio, and they were shouting the entire time. My husband asked his dad to please be quiet since the kids were already sleeping, and my father-in-law loudly shouted, "Shut up," and just kept on playing. And at this point, this has caused major conflict with my husband, as he believes we should have just let 4 additional people stay simply because they are family. But you know what? We paid for half the hotel room, and my sister-in-law paid for the other half. Now, for additional context, we have been to the beach one other time with my sister-in-law last year, but have never been with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. The stepson has been gone for 2 months, but will be in town the next 3 weeks, so it's not like we wouldn't have seen him the next day when we returned. I understand they wanted this to be a fun surprise, but no one considered how this would impact us as a family traveling with 3 small children in a relatively small beach house. So I need to know, am I the jerk for making my in-laws stay in a hotel after they surprised us on our family vacation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk, because what they did was super rude. Did they really think it would be appropriate for them to all stuff into this 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment? Because basically that's exactly what it is. We have kids sleeping in the bathroom, there's no room for everything, and these people walk in and say, "Okay, here we are." Like, I'm sorry, that's so inappropriate, it's not even funny. And I really think they should have at least had a hotel room ready for them so that they wouldn't impose on you and your family. So no, you are not the jerk, because honestly, I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for refusing to inherit the family farm and giving it to my younger brother instead? Because right now, my wife is furious with me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 36-year-old male, and I grew up on a big farm that was owned by my family, who worked as farmers for generations. Much to the detriment of my parents, I worked the farm life from a very young age. I never liked dirt or grime, and farm animals were also never my thing. So to no one's surprise, I left the farm when I turned 18 and I never looked back. I currently live in a big city, and I still love my family very much, and I visit the farm from time to time, but I'm always the happiest when I return to my urban lifestyle. My mother passed away 3 years ago, and 2 months ago, I unexpectedly lost my father due to a work accident. This left my younger brother and I as the sole beneficiaries of their estate, and for the sake of the story, I'll call my brother Tom. I didn't expect to be left with much, since my family helped me out financially more than enough times while they were still alive. I honestly only wanted a couple family trinkets and heirlooms to keep as a keepsake, but to my surprise, as my brother and I sat down with the attorney to discuss our father's will, we discovered that I was left with a majority of the farm, while Tom was left with the rest, meaning that I owned about 3/4 of it and he only had 1/4. Now, the only reason I can fathom behind this decision is that unlike Tom, I have 2 children, and so maybe that's why I was given the bigger share. But I'm not entirely sure, since my children had their own inheritance in the will. Either way, this split of inheritance is absolutely ridiculous, since unlike myself, Tom actually lived on the farm and dedicated his entire life to working on it alongside our parents. I saw that Tom was also shaken up by the decision, so I assured him that I found it absurd as well, and I don't mind forfeiting the land to him. Now, Tom said that I didn't have to do that, but even still, I insisted. After some back and forth on the topic, we mutually agreed to settle this between ourselves on a later date, when everything would be transferred under our names as our parents intended. I recently informed my wife of my decision regarding my inheritance, and she is furious with me for wanting to give most of it up. She is arguing that my decision is impulsive and short-sighted, since the farmland is worth a fortune and I'm just giving it away without a second thought. But I told her that the land is worth a fortune only for those who actually intend on doing something with it, and since I neither intend to sell it or even farm on it, it is effectively useless to me. My wife continued to say that it might be useless to me, but I should think about our children who might one day want to start farming. I told her in that case, I'll transfer only half of the land to Tom, so our children could have 1/4 of the land at their disposal in the hypothetical scenario that they get into farming one day. My wife is now not speaking with me until I reconsider my decision, so I need some unbiased opinions here. Am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk entirely in this situation, but I do think it would be foolish to give this up without having any kind of monetary exchange in some kind of way. Sure, your brother Tom does live on the farm and he does take care of all the land, but I think your wife has a good point as well. You're not thinking about your family, and it's kind of short-sighted in the long run. So I think at the bare minimum, in terms of some kind of compromise, splitting it 50-50 really would be a good idea, and this at least gives you something to look forward to in the future. You could even say to your brother, hey, you can use the half that I have, but please give me a portion of whatever you make off of the crops or whatever you want to do with it. So I don't think giving it all up to Tom would be a good idea, but maybe retaining some of it might be something you could pursue. It honestly depends on the nuance of your relationship with Tom and all this other stuff, but regardless, in my opinion, I don't think it would be a good idea to give it all up. And sure, this is your inheritance, but your wife is still your wife, and her opinion absolutely matters. And in my opinion, I think there's a better way than just giving it up in the way that you want to. Am I the jerk for not picking up my former foster daughter in the middle of the night after she called for help after running away? Because right now, my friends are saying that I'm a monster, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. 2 years ago, my wife and I decided to foster. We have 3 children, and we felt terrible that there were kids out in the world that needed a loving home. Our first 2 placements only lasted a few days, but then we were placed with a girl that we will call Olivia. She's 11 years old, and I won't go into personal details about her, but we were her 5th foster home since she was 9 years old. My wife and I literally tried everything to help out, but she was too rebellious. She ran away, she broke things, she stole things, and she lied. I mean, she lied so much that it was insane, and it was months and months of just this. And just when we thought things were getting better, she would just ruin it. The 6th time that she ran away, we had had enough, and at that point, we asked her to be removed. She said, "Oh, I knew you didn't care. I knew you didn't want me. You just wanted the money." And at that moment, my wife and I lost it. We reminded her how we listened to her, took her places that she wanted to go, and we encouraged her. We told her that we didn't spend a dime of the foster care money, and instead we saved it for her so that she could have money when she turned 18. We even showed her the bank account with thousands of dollars in it and said that when she's 18, she can still have it. I think it was at that point that she realized we cared, but it was way too late then. She went back into the system, and I'm honestly not sure what happened. Life then eventually went on. We had another baby, we moved a few miles away, but then last Saturday night, my wife received a call from Olivia, who at this point is now 13 years old. She put it on speakerphone, and apparently Olivia ran away from another foster home and had been living on the streets for days. Eventually, she made it to our old neighborhood, but I told her that we moved. She asked us if we could pick her up from a certain location and also wanted to know if we would take her in. She was crying and saying that she loved the kids and that she misses my wife's cooking and that she wants me to teach her how to play the piano. I felt bad for her, but taking her back was absolutely impossible. We just feared that she would run away again. So we told her that we would be there, but we called the police instead and they took her in. The police contacted us a few days later saying that Olivia's foster parents were pressing charges. She stole a few things, and Olivia had a vape on her with some illegal substances in it. We were told that she would probably go to juvenile detention until she's 18 years old, and this is what we were told, although we're not sure about what will happen. They then asked us if we wanted any updates, and we just declined. We also asked them not to have her contact us ever again. Well, today we were telling some friends about this, house. And while some agreed with us, a few people called us monsters. One of our friends said, "I would have scooped that baby up and kept her." Now, legally, there was nothing we could do, but are we jerks for not helping her out? What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, I want to say that this situation is very sad. Olivia clearly has a really rough upbringing, and she's lashing out and literally pushing everybody away. That is, until you and your wife stepped in and actually showed her some love. This clearly left an impact on her because when she was out on the street, she looked to you two to try and let her back in the house. But in my opinion, at that point, it is too little too late. We're talking 2 years later, and with both of you having a baby in the house. You already tried to let her in once, and she ruined that opportunity, and you had to move on with your life. So in my opinion, I think it would have been a terrible idea to let her back in. She's clearly not in a good place, and there's not much else you can do to try and help her out. And that doesn't mean that you don't care, but instead, it means that you're preserving your peace and you're protecting your children. Like the fact that she has illegal substances in a vape and that she's stealing stuff from another house, in my opinion, is more than enough reason for me to be like, no, I'm sorry, but you can't live with us. And yes, it is unfair to Olivia, but you need to protect your family and your kids. And in my opinion, I think it would be a terrible idea to let her back in your house. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that she got exactly what she deserved after she dug through my grandma's past in a way that not only offended her, but also banned her from ever seeing her again in the retirement community that she currently lives in? Here's what happened. So my mom went behind my grandmother's back several months ago and tracked down my grandma's half-sister to try and force a reconciliation between them, despite knowing that grandma did not want to and did not claim her half-sister as a real sibling. Well, my grandma was furious, and she told my mom that the half-sister is just some other woman's child and not her real sibling, and her chance to have siblings passed away with her mom. After my great-grandmother passed away, my great-grandfather remarried someone who had a very extensive reputation for going after married and widowed men. My grandma thought the woman was disgusting, and it wasn't helped by the fact that my great-grandpa's new wife was also the other woman to one of the parents of grandma's friends, so the hatred already existed. They went on to have a daughter together who grandma never looked at as anything other than this woman's daughter, and she saw her dad as a traitor and disgusting for going after someone like his wife. So she never formed any connection with her, and she moved out at like 16 years old in order to get away from under them. My great-grandpa's wife's reputation proved to be more than true because even while married to my great-grandpa, there were more and more married or widowed men who were going in and out of that house. At some point several years ago after grandma moved out, her half-sister reached out and asked if she would take her because she wasn't happy at home, and grandma just said no. And that was the last time they spoke. My mom and her siblings grew up knowing that grandma had a half-sister that she wanted nothing to do with. But sometime during her life, mom decided she could be the one to change grandma's mind, and she waited until grandma was older and grandpa was gone, and she's been living alone for 2 years now in a retirement community. She tracked down the half-sister and got that woman's hopes up because she always hoped to have a relationship with my grandma, and then showed up at my grandma's house with the half-sister. And trust me, it didn't go well. The half-sister left heartbroken, and my grandma tore my mom a new one. I have never seen my grandma actually angry before. She called my mom a bratty little know-it-all who thought she could ignore people's wishes and boundaries, and she told mom that she couldn't even look at her. My mom argued back that grandma has a sister and she should know her before it's too late. Grandma then sent me to the store to grab some snacks, and by the time I got back, grandma told mom that she was not welcome back there ever again. Now, my mom thought that grandma would calm down, but she learned a couple of weeks ago when she tried to visit that she was banned from the community, and my mom was horrified. At home, she wouldn't stop talking about it, and I told her she got what was coming to her, especially with what she did. I told her if I did something like that, she would ground me so fast. But just because she's an adult, she thought she could get away with it. Well, my mom told me that I shouldn't stick my nose into her business and that I have zero right to judge her. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You're definitely not the jerk, but your mom absolutely is. She dug up your grandmother's past, and this is all after having a literal lifetime of knowing that this is a taboo subject. This is completely against your grandmother's wishes, and it really does throw a wrench in the wheel in the family, because now your mom is literally physically banned from the community that your grandma lives in. And that just really sucks. It really sucks overall, because all your mom had to do was just not do this and everything would be fine. Or at least have some kind of conversation with the grandma to be like, hey, maybe we could do this. Maybe there's some time to still like find some kind of connection with this lady. Or at least like revisit her opinion on this instead of just being like, yeah, this is what we're gonna do. So to that end, I really don't blame you for speaking up, Because if that was my mom doing that to my grandma, I absolutely would have lost my mind and been like, yeah, you got exactly what you deserved. Because at the end of the day, she absolutely did. And the fact that she went behind your grandmother's back to do this in the first place, in my opinion, is incredibly disrespectful. Am I the jerk for throwing a gift from my dad's wife in the trash all before I moved out of the house simply because of the way they treated me growing up? Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old male and I moved out of my dad's house last month, which was the day after I turned 18. I no longer live in the same town, and instead, I moved in with 3 of my friends who are all starting college next month, and I'm about to start trade school. I'm working until trade school starts to afford rent and food. The 4 of us are all splitting the cost between us, and I did not take money from my dad. The day I left, my dad's wife gave me this photo album saying it was a growing up gift, and this photo album was photos of the 7 years since she and dad married. Now, I did not appreciate the gift, nor did I want it, which I told her straight to her face. She then told me to take it and I should have family photos when I moved out. But before I left, I threw the album into the trash. Now, to explain why I did this, I need to give some background. When I was 10 years old, my mom passed away. She had an allergic reaction while we were out for a celebratory dinner for my dad, and she passed away on the way to the hospital. Mom really was the glue that held us together, and dad and I were never very close before she died. But 6 weeks later, my dad had already met his wife, and they boxed up all of my mom's things, her clothing, jewelry, photos of her phone, keys, literally anything that was just hers, and they brought it all to the dump. I never got anything, and neither did any of her family. I was furious and will never forgive my dad for what he did. The very next day, he moved that woman in, and they were married 4 months later, while also having a small but actual formal wedding. They dragged me to it and pretended everything was fine and normal. She even gave a speech about being so excited to have a son of her own and all the adventures that we're gonna have together. When I was 12 years old, I got copies of a couple of photos of mom from extended family, and I put them in my room. Well, my dad's wife found the photos, and she removed them, saying that I didn't need those, and that I would be bringing down everybody in the house for having them. Well, when she said that, I yelled at her and I cursed at her, wishing that she didn't exist and that she was erased, but my dad yelled at me for disrespecting his wife. And then I told him that day that I wish that he had passed away instead of my mom. He then told me that he wished he'd let my grandparents take me, which was right after the fight they had about my mom's stuff going to the dump. And you know what? I told him that I wish he had. The 7 years of living with the 2 of them were an absolute nightmare, and I'm so glad that I'm gone. I have no respect for either of them, and I don't care that my dad lost someone too, because he threw her away, and not just from him. After I settled into my apartment, dad suddenly remembered my number for the first time in 3 years and called me out for upsetting and disrespecting his wife by throwing her gift away. He told me that she did it out of love, but I just ignored it. She sent me a text on dad's phone telling me that I should be surrounded by happy family memories, which was why she made the album in the first place. I then sent a photo of my room, which has photos of my mom, which are ones that I got copies of. And this was the only reply I made. But I then got several text messages, some from an unknown number after I blocked dad, saying that I was acting spitefully. So truly, I really need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all. I think I would have reacted the exact same way, especially if my family tried to erase my mom. Like seriously, he threw all of her stuff away in the dump. He didn't even think to be like, hey, let's go through it together as a family. It seems like he went from, okay, my wife passed away, to then saying, okay, time to get rid of all of her stuff in like what, a month's time? Like sure, I understand people wanting to move on with their life, but the way he did it is so toxic. It's not okay. Like it really does seem like he didn't care about her at all. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all for throwing away those photos, because the way your dad and his wife acted towards you growing up, in my opinion, is completely unfair. My husband betrayed me in the worst way possible by lying to his coworkers, by claiming that my pregnant sister was actually his wife. And right now, after I discover the truth, I am completely devastated, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm 30 years old, and I've been married to my husband for 5 years. We've been together for 7, and we met back in college. He was the first guy who ever made me comfortable in my own skin. I've always been more of a tomboy into sports, preferring jeans over dresses, and my body's more on the athletic side. But growing up, that wasn't always easy. But my husband loved me for who I am, and he never made me feel like I needed to change. I really thought I found the perfect partner. Now, I also have a younger sister who we will call Rose, and we've always been close. She is beautiful and effortlessly charming, the kind of person that everyone just loves. Our mom has some serious narcissistic tendencies and definitely played favorites growing up, with Rose being the golden child. But it wasn't her fault, and she never asked for the attention. In fact, she's always been super kind and supportive, even though she's the type who avoids confrontation and puts herself last to make others happy. So we've never really had an issue between us, but all those comparisons growing up left me with insecurities that I've never fully shaken. About 2 months ago, Rose's long-term partner left her after finding out that she was pregnant. She was devastated, and we agreed that she should move in with us for a while to get back on her feet. She's been staying with us ever since, and at first, everything seemed fine. My husband didn't seem to act any different, so I didn't suspect anything was wrong. But 1 month ago, I asked Rose to drop off something for my husband at work because I was completely swamped, and I didn't think much of it, and if anything, I just thought that this would save me some time. Well, she did it, and it turns out that when she got there, everyone assumed that she was his wife. They then congratulated him on his beautiful wife and their soon-to-be son, and instead of correcting them, he just went along with it. He admitted that he liked how his coworkers reacted to having a beautiful wife and a baby on the way. He said that it made him feel good. One of his coworkers asked him where his wife was at an event, and since Rose had already dropped by once before, they assumed that she was his wife, and he just didn't correct them. And this made him feel validated, like he was living up to some ideal that I guess I don't fit into. I didn't find out about any of this until a few nights ago. We were out for dinner celebrating our anniversary when we ran into one of his coworkers at the restaurant. The guy asked my husband where his wife was, and when my husband said something vague about her being busy, I felt like the ground had just dropped out from underneath me. The date was basically ruined, and we went home as soon as we ate. I then confronted him as soon as we got home, and that's when he finally told me everything. To say that I was devastated would be an understatement. My husband and I had always agreed on being child-free. We had that discussion early on in our relationship, and I thought that we were on the same page. I don't have a strong desire to be a mom myself, partly because of some personal issues myself, and I just know that it would be difficult for me to conceive. But now it feels like my husband's been using my sister to live out some fantasy life that I could never give him. Now, Rose had no idea about any of this, and when I told her, she was absolutely horrified. She kept apologizing even though none of this was her fault. She feels awful and has even offered to move out, but I just can't ask her to do that. She's already going through so much, and I want to be there for her. But it is so awkward now. I can see how guilty and uncomfortable she feels being in the middle of this mess. This situation has also ripped open old wounds that I thought I had healed. I spent most of my 20s in therapy, working on my self-esteem and trying to overcome these insecurities, especially the ones tied to growing up in Rose's shadow. I thought I'd finally come to a place where I could love myself for who I am, but now it feels like all that progress has been undone. Years of therapy feels wasted, and I'm back to square one, questioning my worth and my place in my husband's life. Ever since finding out, things have been incredibly strained at home. My husband and I aren't sleeping in the same bed, and we've barely spoken to each other. The trust we once had feels shattered, and I have no idea how to even start repairing it. I feel so betrayed. If he can lie about something like this, what else is he hiding? Did he think I wasn't good enough to be introduced to his colleagues? And why has he never talked about his work friends before? I'm starting to wonder if he's been hiding me because he's embarrassed by who I am. This whole thing has dragged up every insecurity I've ever had. I've always felt like I didn't measure up to Rose, even though she's never done anything to make me feel that way. But now it feels like my husband has confirmed my worst fears, that he chose to pretend Rose was his wife because she fits some ideal image and I don't. I honestly don't know how to move forward from this. I love my husband and I want to believe that this is just a huge mistake, but this feels like so much more than that. I'm also worried about how this is affecting Rose. She's been nothing but supportive, but I can see how uncomfortable and guilty she feels being in the middle of all of this. I'm really struggling here. How do I even begin to address this with my husband without all of this turning into a huge fight again? I feel so low, but I just can't stand the idea of our relationship ending. I love this man more than anything. I've cried 2 times and have binge ate more than I've ever done before. How do I live my life knowing that I'm possibly not enough for my husband? What should I do? Wow, this is awful. Like legitimately, in my opinion, there is no good excuse for the way your husband acted. The second Rose went into his work and everyone started being like, wow, your wife is beautiful. Congratulations on your future child. Like that should have been shut down right then and there. He should have happily been like, no, that's not my wife. Like that is literally all he had to do to try and fix this situation. But instead, he like entertained the idea of Rose being his wife and decided to roll with it instead of fixing it right then and there. It's also really alarming to me that he hasn't shown any remorse or even apologized. Like, think about it for a second. The original poster hasn't said anything about him being like, oh, I'm really sorry this happened. But instead, he's trying to plan date nights to try and like fix the situation. I just cannot understand why he would do something like that. And I really think that this is something, in my opinion, that definitely cannot be looked past moving forward. Because what he did to you is unacceptable. And this is definitely something that needs to be figured out much sooner than later. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for getting upset after coming home and finding my mother-in-law had rearranged all of my belongings without my permission first? Because right now I am very upset, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, my girlfriend and I moved into our apartment about 6 months ago, and honestly, so far so good. The only issues I have been having are boundary issues with her parents. She is a family-oriented person and takes pride in family time, which is one of the things I love most about her. However, I come from an entirely different upbringing, having very few people to turn to and relying on nobody but myself. I'm very private and I like my quiet time. My girlfriend's mother speaks without really thinking things through and doing whatever she wants no matter the place or time. A good example of that is our office space. This space is where the majority of the things I own stay in. I have a ton of Pokemon and baseball cards worth thousands of dollars. I have them in books and some just out in the open, and some are all over the place. Either way, in my weird way, I know where everything is and why it's there. Well, her parents came over with boxes and boxes of stuff that my girlfriend left over at her parents' place and decided to make their own little place in the office just for them. And I should also start by saying that I'm not home. I'm working a 12-hour-long shift at work while all of this is going on. I get home and it's close to 11 o'clock p.m. at night, and I'm exhausted. I'm looking forward to having a nice shower and some sleep. Only I came home to my girlfriend not giving me a heads up her parents for some reason were eating dinner at 10:30 p.m., that her mother was in our bedroom folding my underwear, which is entirely weird on its own, and that she had spent the day supposedly organizing all of my cards and stuff I had laying around. And in that moment, I was beyond mad, and now I can't even find the things that I had out. My girlfriend didn't see a real issue with the situation until I started to yell in frustration. I said that I don't like my things being touched, and most of all, I don't like my things being moved around when I'm not at home. We're the ones that live here. It's one thing to drop a few boxes off and leave them for us to figure out what to do with them. I didn't ask anybody to organize my entire closet and office space. So am I overreacting here? If not, I don't know how to get my point across to my girlfriend without upsetting her. She just stays quiet and doesn't speak when I'm speaking, or if I ask for her to talk, she just completely shuts down on me. I don't start by yelling, but this type of situation has happened more than a handful of times. The last thing I want to do after a 12-hour shift at work is entertaining people who have turned my house upside down. After they left our apartment, I asked, why didn't you say anything to your mother about touching things in the office? And she just said, oh, I did. And that's as far as it went. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not overreacting, and you're definitely not the jerk here. Your girlfriend is blatantly disrespecting your boundaries, and she's letting your parents literally go through all of your stuff. If that was me, I would have lost my mind. That is seriously so unfair, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. Now, in my opinion, first and foremost, I would check the trash, because I legitimately think that your mother-in-law might have thrown some stuff away. Like, if you can't find it and you don't know where it is, she probably either took it or threw it away. And either one of those options is insane in my opinion. Like, you said it best, this is your house. You're the one that lives here with your girlfriend. No one else has any right to be there except for you and her. So for her to just completely disrespect your boundaries like that and not try to stop her mother from doing something like this, like, in my opinion, that is so inappropriate. There's literally no good excuse. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would literally stop this today. Like, right this second, I would say something about it. Because this is blatantly just an invasion of privacy at this point. Because if your girlfriend is not mature enough to have some kind of conversation, then if I was in your shoes, I would be calling up the mother-in-law and say, hey, kindly never do that again. My house is not your house. Do not fold my underwear. Do not rearrange my office. Or something like that. Like, seriously, I would not put up with this for a second. So truly, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that, because that is seriously unfair and you do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for telling my older sister that my younger sister is planning on naming her newborn child after my older sister's deceased son? Because right now there is a lot of turmoil in my family, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, I have two sisters and I'm the middle sister. My older sister lost her son in late 2000 2022, so it hasn't even been 2 years yet, and he passed away at 6 months old, and my older sister has been mourning him ever since. My little sister is pregnant with her first child now, and she found out that it's a boy. When I was over at her house, we were talking about her plans for the pregnancy and the baby, and she actually told me that she plans to name her son the name of my older sister's deceased son, and that I need to keep it a surprise. Now, I can tell that she thought it was an honor thing, but knowing my older sister, she would be devastated if that happened. I told my little sister I don't think it's a good idea, and that our older sister would not find it to be sweet and an honor, but instead it would only hurt her even more. We argued about it, and she said that I'm just being dramatic. Even though I knew it was supposed to be a surprise, I knew that my older sister would be even more depressed than she already is if our little sister named her son after her deceased son. So I went against my little sister's wishes, and I told my older sister, and as I expected, she was pissed. She said it was incredibly disgusting and selfish to do that, knowing how fresh it is for her, and that she does not want to see a baby with her son's name in the family, which I agreed with. She was very grateful that I told her before he was born, because she said she doesn't know how badly that would have triggered her. Well, she of course confronted my little sister, and they argued about it for a while, with everyone in our family siding with my older sister. My little sister then called me in tears, saying that I'm the reason that my older sister cut her off and isn't speaking to her, because she is still going to name her son after our nephew, even with my older sister begging her not to, saying that she doesn't find it as some kind of honor, and that it would hurt her to see another child named after her deceased one. I told my little sister that she's a horrible person for still going through with this, knowing how much this is going to hurt our sister. She then says that I'm a jerk for telling her, since it was supposed to be a surprise at birth, and that according to her, seeing her nephew with her son's name would have made her realize that it's a good thing, and that she's just trying to be a good person, and that I'm a jerk for making them fight. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. You did the right thing by talking to your older sister and telling her exactly what this moron was about to do. Your younger sister is a complete idiot. Like seriously, she is so stupid it's not even funny. Who in their right mind would think that this is okay? Like it's probably super obvious in the family that the older sister is mourning the loss of her son, and she is clearly having such a hard time right now. So for your little sister to act like this and use your older sister's dead son's name as some kind of excuse to like pay tribute or like honor him in some kind of way is not only delusional but also kind of insane. Like seriously, that is a crazy thing to do. So truly, good for you for stepping up and saying something, because this kind of behavior absolutely deserved to be shamed. My sister-in-law is furious with me after I make her lunch every single day with just a little bit too much flourish, because now she claims she's embarrassed to eat her food in front of any of her coworkers, and she's now demanding that I stop or else she will never talk to me ever again. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female, and I make meals every day for me and my husband to take to work. I enjoy adding my own personal flourish to the meals, usually with something like putting toppings in the shape of a heart or drawing a cute face on a snack. It's a fun hobby of mine, and it brings me joy later in the day to open my lunch and see it nicely arranged. A few years ago, my sister-in-law had to take a lower-paying job after an accident that left her unable to work at her previous one. So I began making her meals like I did for my husband and myself, as I knew she was struggling both financially and emotionally. She lives very close to us, so my husband always just dropped them off on his commute to work. I always added my extra touch to her meals as well, since I enjoy cooking, and I figured it would be a nice thing to do. However, she called me a few months ago and asked me if I could stop making her lunches look so fancy. Now, I legitimately thought that she was joking, but according to her, none of her colleagues at work have such elaborate lunches, and it makes her feel as if she is flaunting her status. Now, she is not paying me for the lunches, and it takes me maybe an extra 10 minutes maximum to add some kind of fun touch to the meal, so I was confused on her train of thought. I thought that maybe her coworkers were taking her lunch, and she just didn't want to tell me, but I agreed to make the lunches less fancy because I wanted her to feel comfortable. Well, since I make the exact same meals for all three of us, now I just don't put effort into the presentation of one of them. Since my husband drops off the lunch on his way to work, there has been 1 or 2 times where he has accidentally given her the wrong box. I have labeled which lunch is not flourished, but in the rush of the commute, there is still the occasional instance of taking the wrong box. My sister-in-law then asked me a few days ago if I could just stop making both me and my husband's lunches fancy due to the risk of her being given the wrong one, but I refused, as it makes me happy to see the extra touch of personality in the food, and I told her that it wouldn't hurt her if she got one accidental fancy meal. But when I said that, she was furious and then she hung up on me. She has now been refusing to talk to me over the past few days, and when I tried to call her to reason, she just kept hanging up on me. She has told my husband that she will only talk to me if I agree to stop making all of our lunches look so fancy. Well, I am still making her lunches every day, and my husband is still dropping them off. And while my husband agrees with me that her demand was out of order, he has now said that maybe I should just make all the food less flourished, just so that she will not be angry if there is an accidental swap of lunches. I know that it would be easy on me to just not flourish the food, but I don't want to give up my hobby for a theoretical chance of her receiving the wrong box. So am I the jerk for refusing to do this? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk. This sounds like a really cute thing to do, and if I had a significant other who was doing that, I would treasure that and be like, okay, let's keep doing that. Also, is your sister-in-law forgetting the fact that you're making lunches for her every single day? Like, you don't need to do that, but you're doing it out of the kindness of your own heart to help her out since she's having a hard time financially. And she really wants to sit there and be picky about what she's getting. She's like, oh my god, this is too fancy. Can you tone it down? In fact, you need to stop doing that for all of your lunches. I don't want to accidentally be embarrassed at work. Like, what are you talking about? This is literally someone biting the hand that's feeding them. So in my opinion, if your sister-in-law doesn't like that, then she can make her own stupid lunches. I mean, I'm kind of surprised you're even making them still in the first place, because this behavior is insane. She can't just make these kinds of weird demands and expect you to just follow through with them, because the only words coming out of her mouth should be a thank you and that's it. And if she doesn't like the way her food looks, then honestly, she can close her eyes and take a bite, because these kinds of weird demands, in my opinion, are completely unacceptable. My boyfriend falsely staged an intervention for me, despite the fact that I'm not addicted to any substances. And now my family, friends, and work colleagues are all slowly turning against me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been with my boyfriend for 3 years, and our relationship has had absolutely no issues before this incident. He has been the perfect and most loving partner. However, last week, I came home from work to an intervention with all my close friends and family, orchestrated by my boyfriend, who has apparently convinced them that I'm an addict. For context, I have no history of substance abuse, no behavioral signs that would suggest any kind of addiction, and no reason for him to believe otherwise. I believe he knows I'm not on any kind of substance because he has said things to my mom and sister that he knows to be untrue, claiming that things have gone missing around the house even though they haven't, that I've used his credit card to withdraw money even though I don't have any of his card details, and that I've been acting erratically despite the fact that I haven't done anything out of the ordinary. When I confronted him about all of this, he said, "It's not about the substances, it's about making sure that you're safe." My partner is a psychologist and has convinced my entire family that I'm somehow displaying all the hallmark signs of having some kind of substance addiction. They all insist that I'm in denial and that I need some help, and no one is willing to entertain my denials at all. My mom says that she isn't willing to have me over to her house, and my sister won't allow me to see my niece until I go to rehab. Based on conversations with my family and friends, I believe he's been spinning this story for several months now, literally all prior to staging the intervention. I'm now super embarrassed, as he organized for practically all of my close friends, family, and even a work colleague to attend this intervention. But more than that, I feel utterly betrayed and confused. I can't understand his motivation for doing this. Can anyone offer me some insight into what is prompting this otherwise normal man to do this? What should I do? This is probably the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life, and if I was in your shoes, I would be dumping him right away and getting out of that situation. For starters, who cares about his motivation? This guy's trying to isolate you and ruin your life. He's turning your friends, family, and your work colleagues against you by making up some lie that you're somehow addicted to substances. And since you're not, you're probably thinking like, what is going on right now? I am not addicted to anything. And at this point, in my opinion, I would just start viewing your boyfriend as not your boyfriend. But instead, this is someone you absolutely need to run from, because this is not normal behavior. And this is also not a normal man. He's not otherwise normal. This guy's insane. He is literally using his profession as a psychologist to isolate you from everybody that you know. And he's trying to force you into rehab for something that you don't have a problem with. Like, this guy is manipulating everybody around you to try and turn them against you. So if I was in your shoes, I would get out of there like yesterday. There's no way I would stay in that relationship. I would write everything down and probably look for like local or state help to try and get you out of that situation, because your boyfriend sounds quite literally unhinged, and this is not something that I would take lightly in the slightest. My wife has been having a secret affair and has been cheating on me for quite a while, but now that she found out that she's pregnant, I've decided to kick her out of my house once and for all. But now family and friends are coming back saying that I'm overreacting overreacting and that I should help a pregnant woman in need. But right now, I am so angry that I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. I'm a 24-year-old female, and my wife and I have been together for several years. We met in college, and our connection was instant. Over time, our relationship grew deeper, and we decided to get married about a year ago. We've always been each other's best friends and confidants, and I truly believe that we were meant to be together forever. We've talked about starting a family, traveling, and growing old together. A few months ago, I started noticing that my wife was acting differently. She became more distant and secretive, and I felt like something was off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I tried talking to her about it, but she always reassured me that everything was fine and that she was just stressed out from work. Now, I wanted to believe her, so I just let it go, thinking that maybe I was just being paranoid. However, a few weeks ago, I accidentally saw a message on her phone that confirmed my worst fears. She was having an affair. The text messages were explicit, and it was clear that this wasn't a one-time thing. When I confronted her, she broke down and confessed to everything. She had been seeing this person for a few months, and to make matters worse, she told me that she was pregnant with their child, and I was completely shattered. The woman I loved, the person I trusted more than anyone else in the world, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I could not even process the fact that she was pregnant. It was like a nightmare that I could not wake up from. After the initial shock wore off, I realized that I couldn't stay in this marriage. The trust was broken beyond repair, and I didn't see any way that we could move forward. I told her that she needed to leave our home. I know she's pregnant, and I know that this is a difficult time for her, but I couldn't bear the thought of living under the same roof, especially after what she did. I didn't yell or scream, but I just told her calmly that she had to go. Ever since then, our mutual friends and even some of her family members have reached out to me telling me that I'm being too harsh. They argue that she's pregnant and needs support, and that I should stand by her despite what happened. They've tried to make me feel guilty, saying that I'm abandoning her when she needs me the most, and some have even accused me of being heartless for kicking out a pregnant woman. But from my perspective, she's the one who broke our vows and betrayed our relationship. I am heartbroken, and I don't feel like I owe her anything after what she did. I need time and space to heal, and I don't think I can do that if she's still in my life. I have offered to help her find a place to stay, but I just cannot have her here. So am I the jerk for asking my wife to leave after she cheated on me and got pregnant? I know it's a tough situation, especially with the pregnancy involved, but I don't think I can move past this betrayal. I'm not sure if I'm being too harsh or if my feelings are justified. What should I do? Wow, there is no way that you're possibly the jerk in this situation. First of all, any mutual friend or family member that is seriously saying, "Oh, come on, stop being so harsh on her. She only cheated on you. It's not that big of a deal. You need to support a pregnant woman." Like, what are these people talking about? They have this all backwards, because the original poster, in my opinion, should only have to support their child. Like, this lady cheated on the original poster. They got pregnant, and now they're stuck with that, and now they're like, "Oh man, I've completely messed up my life." So in my opinion, if we really want to support this lady who got pregnant, then maybe it's time for the mutual friends and family to step up. I always love it whenever people who are like trying to defend somebody who cheated or somebody who did something wrong to another person by basically implying that the person who's offended is actually the person at fault instead of the person who stole or cheated or lied or whatever might be going on. Like, this is a classic case of people victim blaming in like the worst way possible. And if I was in your shoes, I would not stand that for a second. I would not allow these people to try and guilt trip you into taking your wife back into your life. Because trust me, if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My sister is trying to plan her gender reveal party on my 21st birthday, and right now I am very upset, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female, and for a bit of context, I live in an entirely different state from my family. I've been away from them for about 8 months, and I visited maybe about 2 times. I am turning 21 in a month, and I have a birthday trip planned with my roommate. We were originally going to go to Disneyland and then meet up with my mom and sister in Las Vegas, but these plans changed since finding out that my sister was pregnant and she can't fly. So instead, my mom is flying me and my roommate home for my birthday. After I got the flights, she told me to talk to my sister since she wanted to go to a restaurant that we had been to before for my birthday. Well, today I received a text message from my sister asking when I'm going to be home so that she can plan her gender reveal. I gave her my dates, and she asked me what time I get in on my birthday. I ask if she's trying to plan her gender reveal on my birthday, and she tells me it's the only day day that works for everybody. And by everyone, I mean about 14 plus people. Well, I tell her that I will not be going if she decides to do that. She then gets upset with me and asked me why. And at this point, I put my foot down and I told her no again, to which I receive one final message. Are you sure? Because that's the only day that works with everybody else's schedule. Otherwise, we're gonna have to do Saturday the 31st if you won't go that Sunday. But the thing is, that Sunday is my birthday. She seems to see nothing wrong with the entire situation, and I am seriously at such a loss for words. What should I do? Yeah, your sister does not sound very smart, because it sounds like she can have the gender reveal party on the 31st, and you can still have your birthday party on that Sunday. Like seriously, that sounds really annoying, and I don't blame you for getting upset. She can also do this on literally any other day besides your birthday. Like seriously, your sister is just coming off as incredibly entitled and very selfish. I also find that gender reveal parties are really stupid in my opinion, so if you really wanted to be petty, just don't show up. Spend time with your friend and have fun with like, I don't know, literally anybody else. But if she really wants to push and be like, oh no, we're doing this on your birthday, then in my opinion, I would just go off and do my own thing. I would not allow this lady to take away from your birthday party, especially your 21st birthday party, which you know what, in my opinion, that is a big deal. So hopefully your sister can like come to her senses and be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this, because what she's trying to do right now, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic. An entitled old jerk ramps me with their shopping cart, screaming that I'm going too slow and I need to get out of their way. And despite the fact that I tried to talk reason into this guy, he refused to listen, choosing to instead hit me with his cart harder and harder. And I've honestly never been more angry at anybody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a few weeks ago. I ran into Trader Joe's to grab a couple of things before the weekend, and one of the things that I was asked to get was a very specific kind of soup. Now, Trader Joe's was moderately busy, but for some reason, the seasoning and soup aisle was absolutely nuts. I waited my turn, and when I was up, I scanned the shelf to find the soup I was looking for. Now, I didn't see it, so I squat down to scan the lower shelf. Well, it was at that moment that this old entitled jerk proceeded to hit me with his cart. I wasn't paying attention, so I thought it was an accident. So I looked up and I said, oh, I'm sorry, I'll be just a second. To which this entitled jerk responded by saying, move it, you're too slow. And then he rammed me with his cart even harder. I then looked at him and I said in a calm voice, do it again and you'll see how fast I can actually move. He then got this smug look on his face and proceeded to ram me with his cart even harder. Now at this point, I saw a Trader Joe's associate moving towards us, but I was absolutely pissed. I had kind of an awful day, so I just stood up and mule kicked the cart into his middle section, sending him straight to the ground. Now to be honest, in retrospect, I'm not proud of this, and I recognize not only was my response disproportionate to the offense, but I could have also injured this guy seriously. He was easily into his 70s and slightly overweight. Now I'm not a big guy at 5'8", but I do run, I work out, and I generally take care of myself. The Trader Joe's associate helped him up and told him to leave immediately. He sputtered and pointed at me, and one of the associates just said, we saw the whole thing, so please just leave. Now reluctantly, he left and they approached me. The one gentleman introduced himself as the assistant manager, and he said to me, look, we saw everything, but next time, please just come get one of us. I then asked him if he needs me to stick around to make some kind of formal report, as in like call the police, but he responded by saying, no, this guy has a history of coming in here and being rude and obnoxious to other customers, but he's never done anything like this. We're gonna talk to the manager and get this guy banned. I then thanked him and I paid for my groceries and then I left. And what's really crazy is that when I recounted this to my friends, over half of them had stories that were similar to this. So it really leaves me wondering what in the world is wrong with people, because this aggressive behavior is incredibly inappropriate. Okay, for starters, I am so glad you defended yourself. This guy rammed his cart into you multiple times. He did this on purpose and he wanted to hurt you. So in my opinion, the way you reacted was not disproportionate. Sure, you should have probably talked to an associate of some kind, but this situation kind of demanded something a little bit more aggressive. And in my opinion, if I was in your situation, I probably would have reacted the same way, because there is a difference between someone accidentally bumping into you in the supermarket and someone intentionally trying to hit you in the head with their cart. One's accidental and the other one's like attempted assault. So I see no problem with you kicking that cart right back at this guy. Like he's the one that started this inappropriate behavior. And just because this guy's in his 70s doesn't mean that you have to put up with this behavior for a second. I don't care if they're 70 or 17. Intentionally ramming into someone with a shopping cart, all because they're squatting down to check if there's soup on the shelf, is literally such an awful thing to do to somebody, and there's absolutely no excuse for it. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that I can't make her a wedding dress despite making them for 2 other friends, all because of the time that I won't have to make the wedding dress in the first place? place. Because right now she is very pissed off and claiming that I have favorites in our friend group. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. I'm a 38-year-old female, and I'm a dressmaker with my own shop. It's been a custom in my friend group that my wedding gift to my friends who marry has been an original wedding dress made to their taste, and I've done this for 2 of my friends. I love my job and my friends, so it has been an easy choice for me. However, I am currently 26 weeks pregnant with my first child, and I'm now trying to lessen my workload as I prepare for my maternity leave and pass larger projects over to my employees. My friend informed me last night that she is getting married, and I was of course so happy for her and I congratulated her. She then asked if I would be making a dress for her, and I told her of course. I asked her for the date and she said it's going to be January 19th. And you know what? That was fine. It would be a year and 5 months away, which would be perfect. That would give me plenty of times to create the designs and to make it, and I expressed all of this to her, but she corrected me. She wasn't getting married January 19th, 2026 like I assumed, but instead it's going to be January 19th, 2025. Now, I was a bit shocked at this, and I told her that if that's the date that she's picked out, I would have to take back my promise, as there's no way I can make her dress in that time frame, as I'll not be too long postpartum. I asked her to reconsider the date if she wanted me to make the dress, pointing out that 5 months wasn't enough time to plan a wedding anyways, but she insisted that she still wanted it. Now, I didn't push it as it was up to her, but I made it clear that I will not be able to make her dress. Well, she didn't understand this at all, pointing out how I'll be taking off work soon anyways, and said that I could just use that time to make her dress. Now, I will admit in hindsight that I got a bit snappy here, and she likely didn't realize just how much work goes into a wedding dress, but I asked her if she had hit her head, and why she would think it's okay to ask me to put stress on my pregnancy for her wedding dress. Well, ever since then, she's been putting messages in the group chat, calling me out for this, and saying how it's easy to tell who my favorites are, and that it's clear her feelings are very hurt. Now, at this point, I'm annoyed, but also I'm feeling a bit regretful about this. I can't trust my employees to make wedding dresses without me, as their skill level is just not up to par, but maybe I could have a rehearsal dinner dress made for her, or even a reception dress made to try and make up for the custom dress that she wants. So am I the jerk for not being able to make this dress? What should I do? Yeah, your friend is incredibly selfish. The fact that she thinks that you, while you're on pregnancy leave, can just make her a dress in what, 5 months flat? Like seriously, you are 26 weeks pregnant. You're about to give birth to your first child, and you're already under so much stress as it is. It is ignorant for her to assume that, oh wow, you're not making it because you don't like me. It's like, what are you talking about? This has nothing to do with liking or not liking you. But if anything, this literally is all about time. She's giving you no time to, I don't know, have a baby and also do this stupid wedding dress. And in my opinion, the fact that she's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna put messages in the group chat and call you out. Like if I was in your shoes and the second I saw that, I would have gone scorched earth and been like, oh, we're definitely not friends anymore and you will never get anything from me ever again. Because your pregnancy is no joke. You need all your time and attention towards that, and that really is the most important thing in your life right now. And the fact that she does not care about that, but only wants you to take all that time off to make a wedding dress for her, in my opinion, shows exactly how selfish she is and how little she thinks about you and your future baby. I canceled my fiance's dream wedding, all because it was absurdly expensive. And now, after being pressured by both my fiance and her family, I now feel like I'm at a crossroads and I now don't know what to do. I'm a 25-year-old male, and I've been with my fiance for about 5 years. We had one breakup a few years ago because I had a lot of personal things going on in my life, like a death in the family and a major surgery that reduced the mobility in my hand, which I was very bummed out about. She claimed that I neglected her and then she left me. It's worth noting that I'm not from the country that we live in, and I have no family here and only have a few friends, whereas she has lived her whole life here and is much more well established. Long story short, 6 months went by and we bumped into each other and things sort of started up again, and they were going well for a while. Then in 2022, I proposed to her and we were engaged. We didn't start wedding planning until 2023, so I managed to get a good job and had a decent amount of savings while she was still studying, but then I lost my job due to an immigration issue, and essentially, I had to use all the savings I had to apply for the right visa. The month after I lost my job, she got a job. I couldn't find a new job while my visa was processing, which ended up taking about 6 months. So she chose a venue that she loved, and by January of 2024, I was already accumulating debt. The wedding that she wanted was estimated to cost around $30,000, and that's excluding flights and visas for my family to come into the country. I made it clear to her that this was not affordable to me, and she was putting an immense amount of pressure on me. Now, against my wishes, she paid the deposit for the venue and sent out invitations, all whilst constantly putting pressure on me to pay up at least half. I was already in a lot of debt, and I was living as simply as I possibly could to preserve money for food. As a result of me not paying, she involved her dad, who said some pretty nasty things about me, all while he himself lost his job and was on the verge of bankruptcy. This period went on for about a month, and her family offered to pay the majority of the expenses with the expectation that I pay them back. But I refused this after what was said to me and how I was treated. She was adamant that if the wedding didn't go through, then our relationship would be over. This was back in May of 2024, and ultimately the wedding was canceled. She was pretty upset about this and said some awful things to me, but stayed with me. I then continued my job search, and I told her that if she gives me some time to get a job and earn some money again, I will give her the wedding that she wants. And that was our plan. We stopped meeting as often as we used to, and there was a sense of awkwardness and often arguments. I finally did end up getting a job around my birthday towards the middle of the year, and just before my birthday, she decided to tell her friends the wedding was off, and she just completely ghosted me. This created some anxiety in me, as I had finally got a job after almost a year of being unemployed, and she also ditched me on my birthday, which was really rough. I eventually spoke to her on the phone, and she was already quite intoxicated and proceeded to tell me that it was over and she doesn't want this anymore, and it took her time to finally process it. She swore at my family and me for manipulating her and doing her dirty. After that conversation, I just stopped texting her, and she has blocked me on social media, and from what I heard, she is going in heavy on the partying and the drinking. It's worth noting that before canceling the wedding, I did tell her that I would pay her back for the deposit and we could have a smaller and simpler wedding or just delay it, but she outright refused to accept this. I still wanted to marry her, but it seemed the wedding was more important to her than the marriage. I think it's also important to note that she often threw back in my face about how small her ring was and how she didn't even like the proposal. Now, it's important to note that where I come from, we are legally married but not religiously married, as that was the point of the upcoming ceremony, which is important in both of our cultures. So divorce in this sense means legal fees and a lot of documents. Secondly, I am getting a lot of comments implying that I used her for immigration purposes, which is sort of hurtful because I was happy to return to my home country, and I may still do so due to the lack of support that I have here. She is the one that pushed for the legal marriage so that we could be in the same country, and I was against the idea. Regardless though, I am now in debt, and I have to work to pay all of that off. Before the legal ceremony, when she was unemployed, she explicitly said that she doesn't want financial strain on her family or on mine. But this quickly changed as my bank balance drained in legal costs, and hers rose as she got a new job. And please keep in mind, I was clear and explicit about wanting a small wedding, as most of my family would not be coming anyways before we legally got married. So this all is honestly such a mess, and I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, the pressure that she put on you, as well as what her family put on you to try and get this wedding going, in my opinion, is insane. That is so inappropriate, and it's so inconsiderate of your situation. You literally don't have two pennies to rub together, and these people are expecting you to pay thousands of dollars at the bare minimum just to get this wedding going that you're not even ready for. Like, I'm kind of glad that things broke off between the two of you, and hopefully you're able to get away from her completely, because the way she's acting is honestly insane, and I'm truly sorry that you have to deal with this in the first place. Am I the jerk for returning the bag my husband bought me, all because I didn't want the rude sales assistant to get any commission off of our purchase? Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I've never experienced a sales assistant being so rude to me before, so maybe I overreacted here, but last week I was looking for a birthday gift. There was only one free sales assistant, and I could tell that she didn't want me to approach her, as she was intentionally avoiding eye contact and walking away when I was close. I waited about 10 minutes in hopes that anybody else would show up and be free for me, but they weren't, and it was getting late, so I approached the original assistant. Well, she pretty much just brushed me off without helping me, so I went back to browsing on my own, as my husband was going to meet me there. But when my husband arrived, her entire demeanor changed, and she suddenly wanted to do her job. I was looking at a bag that I would have bought for myself if it wasn't for the rude sales assistant. My husband asked me if I wanted to get it, but I said no, as the rude lady would have been the one to benefit from the commission, because at this point, she had come over and was offering to help us out. Well, a few days later, my husband surprised me with the exact same bag. I asked him if he got it from the same place and if it was with the same sales assistant who helped him before. Well, that's when he told me that it was. So I told him that I wanted to return it. He knows that she was rude and dismissive when I tried to ask her for help, but he still didn't want me to return the bag, as he said that I would be missing out because of a random stranger. To him, the commission isn't a big deal, but I don't think she should benefit after how rude she was. If he had bought the bag with a different sales assistant, I would have kept it. But since he didn't, I returned it. And now he's upset because I returned his gift. So am I the jerk for returning this all because of that stupid lady at the store? What should I do? No, I don't really blame you for returning the bag, especially when you have a sales assistant acting really rude and dismissive. And she only perks up when your husband shows up. Like seriously, that's already super inappropriate, and I don't blame you for being upset. It's also unbelievable to me that your husband didn't buy this from literally any other sales assistant. Like, why did he go to the sales assistant that he knew was rude to you in the beginning? Like, does he have a bad memory or something? Like, why would you do that? And sure, maybe it was a little bit petty to return it all because you wanted to get back at this sales assistant, but at the same time, I don't blame you for going back. And in my opinion, I would definitely go to a store manager and explain the situation, because that lady's poor attitude lost a sale, and that is not fair for you in the slightest. My entitled, creepy grandmother not only cannot accept the fact that I'm a grown adult, but also is claiming to anybody within earshot that my future twins actually belong to her. And after dealing with some really creepy comments, as well as some awful behavior by my grandmother, I'm now left at an impasse, where right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I feel super conflicted. I'm a 25-year-old female, and my 69-year-old grandmother simply cannot accept the fact that I am grown and acts incredibly entitled to my children. She is genuinely nice most of the time, but there are things that she does frequently that really aggravate me. For some background, I'm the first grandchild, and I'm definitely the favorite. And trust me, I am not saying this to brag. My mom had me when she was 17 years old, and my biological dad nor any of his family ever had anything to do with me. This meant that she's the only grandmother I ever had until my mom married my stepdad when I was 8. My mother and I lived with my grandmother up until that point, and even after we moved out, I would still visit her or spend the night with her all the time for years. I sort of slowed down on visiting all the time when I began college because I had a full-time job as well. For the past few years, I will typically see her maybe once or twice a month, and each time I talk to her or whenever I visit, she will make comments about how she's sad that I don't spend the night with her anymore, or that I just don't visit as much, despite me being a 25-year-old married woman with literally 2 kids on the way and a job. She complains that I don't call her enough, but the phone literally goes both ways. In her words, she sits at home and does nothing all day, so why would she not think to call her family members or something like that? Despite my age, she still treats me as a literal baby. She will occasionally start rubbing my butt and start singing a nursery rhyme, which is something she used to do when I was a baby. Every time she does it, I jump and I move forward, and she'll say to me, "Oh, don't act like that. You used to laugh and laugh when I would do that." And I would say, "Yeah, when I was a toddler, but I'm 25 now." And she'll say to me, "You're always going to be grandma's baby, and I'll rub it and pat it whenever I want." And then she'll just start laughing. One time, my grandmother, my mom, my sister, and I all went on vacation together. We shared one hotel room with 2 beds, and my sister was in the bathroom and I wanted to change, so I told my mom and grandmother not to look my way because I was changing my clothing. My grandmother then said to me, "I'm gonna look." So I was like, "Why?" And I let out an uncomfortable laugh, and she said to me, "It's not like I haven't seen you naked before." So again, I reiterated, "Well, that's when I was a kid, but I'm an adult now." And she just laughed at me. It's like in her eyes, I never aged past the age of 10. She will be shocked and stunned when I suddenly like something that as a kid I used to hate. And the same thing applies vice versa. For example, I used to hate salads as a kid, but in my 20s, I eat them all the time. She refuses to believe that I really like salads because 15 years ago I didn't. When she is finally convinced, she gets sad. She says things like, "I can't believe I don't know what my girl eats anymore," which I know isn't a huge deal, but paired with everything else, it's just another thing that really bothers me. Anyways, when I announced I was pregnant with twins, I announced it to all of my grandparents at once in person. But once I did this, my grandmother shrieked with joy, and she began sobbing right there on the spot. She then literally got in my step-grandmother's face, pointed and said, "Those are my babies, you hear me? They are mine." And my step-grandmother just sort of stood there and said, "Well, I guess I should be congratulating you then." And my grandmother says, "They're more like my grandbabies than great-grandbabies. And since I raised this girl, she's more like a daughter." Now, my mother gets a little uncomfortable by this, because while I did live with her for the first 8 years of my life, this doesn't replace my grandmother as my mother. My mother later asked me who I wanted to be at the hospital when I gave birth, and my grandmother interrupted me and said, "I will be at the hospital, just to let you know." And I just looked at her wide-eyed and I said, "I didn't say you could come to the hospital." But she just looked at me and said, "Oh, I know. I'm just saying that I will be there." And all of this has been amplified throughout my pregnancy. She refers to my children as her babies. She tells me that I shouldn't do certain things, such as carry a 5-pound duffel bag, all because I'm suddenly hurting her babies. Eventually, my mom, my grandma, and myself went baby clothes shopping, and there was a shirt that said Mama's Boy or something like that. And she pointed it out and said, "You don't even need to worry about buying a shirt like that. They're going to be Grandma's boys, so I'm settling that right now." She even refers to them as her babies to other people. I was at her house with my mom, and my great aunt called my grandmother. My great aunt asked, "Have you had your babies yet?" And my mom, who was stunned, asked, "Wait, what?" Well, my grandmother then turned and pointed to my stomach and said, my babies, and then began rubbing my stomach. She even began saying in front of my mom, who is the actual grandma, "This is your grandma. You hear me? Your grandma." And sometimes, instead of acting super entitled, she will switch and act like she's completely outcasted. She will say things like, "I sure hope you let me see these boys at least sometime. It would be so sad if you didn't." And she says this for literally no reason at all. I have never stated that I would withhold them from her, but she acts like I'm never going to let her see them all out of the blue. All in all, the reason why I find it hard to set boundaries with her and why I feel so guilty is because my grandfather passed away when I was 18 years old. They were together for 40 years, and I know that she misses him dearly. She lives all by herself, and I understand that she is very lonely, but she has said that my kids have given her a purpose again, and that she feels excited to feel needed again, which is a big thing for her. For example, she got sad when my little sister got her first car because she simply wouldn't need her anymore to take her to school. She has done a lot for me and my family, and while I do love her a lot, these things that she does really just drive me up a wall. It's like she's trying to take the place of both my mother and I when it comes to my children. She lives completely in the past, and it seems like she almost resents the fact that I'm an adult and need to be treated with some kind of respect. She wasn't like this at all before my grandfather died, so I know it has to be something caused by grief. I just need to know, am I overreacting by being uncomfortable and annoyed by all of these things? My mom gets annoyed with her a lot, so she understands, but my stepdad tells me that I'm being too sensitive. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, I think it's very important to set boundaries like right now. For starters, I would never allow that woman to touch me ever again. Like, I don't care what the circumstances are at all. If I was in your shoes, this lady would absolutely be crossing a serious boundary for me. Like the whole rubbing the belly and patting the butt thing, like that is really weird. And also her trying to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna look at you change and watch you get naked." It's like, dude, what are we doing right now? That is so creepy and weird. So that would be step one for me of like, yeah, you're definitely never doing that again. But also, in my opinion, if this was my grandmother acting that way, I would absolutely speak up and set the ground rules very clearly in front of all of us. I would correct her anytime she tries to act like, "Oh, those are my babies," especially with the way she acted towards your step grandma. Like that would have been like, "Hold up, time out, what on earth are you doing?" Like that kind of behavior absolutely deserves to be ridiculed and corrected right there on the spot. It is not a scenario where we should just let it slide, because that kind of crap is just unacceptable in my opinion. And that kind of leads me to like another point. It seems like everybody in the family is letting her behavior slide, and nobody's really correcting her because she always plays the guilt-tripping route. She not only wants to have these kids all to herself, but then she covers the bases of like, "Oh, I hope you actually let me see them." Like she's playing the obsessive great-grandmother, but also trying to spin it as if you don't want her around so that maybe you feel forced to allow her to be around your kids. Like she's playing all sides of the field at the same time, and it all comes off as like super manipulative. So in my opinion, based on the way she's acting, I think you need to set boundaries right now and make it very clear that these babies are your children and not her property. Because her behavior, in my opinion, and I really do mean this, it comes off as very alarming and incredibly creepy. And if she starts acting up in the way that she's acted before, in my opinion, it is absolutely time to speak up and correct her for the weird things that she's saying. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled mom has treated me like garbage for years, and now that I'm on the verge of moving out, it's all hit a breaking point because right now I really don't know what to do. So for a bit of background, my parents divorced a few years ago, and before that, my mother and I were inseparable, and I always told her everything. Meanwhile, I didn't talk to my dad much at all. Shortly after the divorce, my mom started dating, and I supported her relationship because she found herself in good company. I don't particularly like this man myself, but I still go out with him. My father found a wife with a teenage daughter, and I like them both. We get along well, and I joke around with them all the time. Now, my mother was jealous for a long time because I spent time with my father and my new stepmother. I think she was afraid I would replace her. I liked it more at my dad's because my friends were still still there, and my dad didn't nag me about every little thing. My mother used to scream so loudly at me when I was little that the neighbors could hear the screams all the way outside. And this is in regards to like forgetting to do my homework, or if I didn't hear her calling me into the living room. Now, I was really having fun at my dad's place, but I didn't want to spend any more time in my mom's flat, so I wanted to move in on my own. The perfect opportunity came about half a year ago when my grandfather's tenant moved out, and that's when I finally got to live on my own. Well, my mom heard about this and was a little bit upset that I didn't wait until the end of high school to move out. She even said to me, "It's good that you're moving out so you don't have to suffer from me." And before I moved, my mom was very busy blaming me for literally everything. For example, I had either forgotten my keys in my room or they were at the bottom of my bag and I just couldn't find them. I had just come from the opening night of our school play. It was getting closer to midnight and I tiredly called my mother to see if she could come and unlock the door. Well, she came in angry and started shouting loudly. She said to me, "Get ready to pack all your stuff. I've been thinking that you should move in with your father completely. I am not your servant." And at this point, I was still living half with my mom and half with my dad at the time. I was going to my room to pack my overnight stuff, and my friend, who we will call Sam, was coming to pick me up at my dad's place. She then said to me, "You're just like your dad. You take advantage of me, and then when you don't need me anymore, you're just angry and awful towards me. I am only human." Now, at this point, I snapped because I've heard that phrase from so many awful people, and I just don't like it one bit. She then said to me, "Oh well, you just think I'm an awful person." And despite the fact that I told her, "No, I don't think that," she just kept saying over and over again, "Yes, you do. You definitely do." And at this point, I just rushed down the hallway to wait for my ride, even though she wasn't supposed to fetch me for maybe about half an hour. So many of these kinds of pointless tantrums had already happened, so I think you can vaguely understand why I wanted to move out on my own. Every single time, she managed to mention how she was only human. She would say to me, "I always think you don't spend time with me when you're here, and you just always get away with housework and all this stuff, and you don't do anything with me. You would probably rather go where you feel good than stay with me, but you're always in your own room sulking." But I responded by saying, "Yeah, hey, I'd probably feel better talking to you and spending time with you if you didn't start complaining about everything every single time. And this is just a little thing." She then said to me, "You only like me when I smile. I can't smile all the time." But I just said, "You don't have to as long as you don't complain all the time. I was ready to watch a movie with you tonight, but you said no." And then she said, "No, you weren't." And after having enough of this, I just said, "Yes, I was." And then I slammed my door and went back to my room because my company just wasn't good enough, even though it's what she wanted. She would say stuff to me like, "You always get angry right away. You only come to me when you need help or money. You surely don't behave like that with your father. Your father and stepmother must treat you better than I do, and always in your best interest, of course. That's probably why you wanted to go on holiday with them far away from me. This is just who I am." Well, you're giving it away right now. Would you rather be with your father than here if it's so nice there? And this just goes on and on for dozens of minutes almost every single day. Now, in response to that wonderful rage, she guilt trips me into love and apologies. She will say to me, "I love you beyond measure. You're the best gift I've ever received. I don't like it when you're here and you spend all your time in your own room. Homework could be done in the same room as me, you know. But the time you spend in the same room as me is always face down. I mean, I was able to be with you when you were younger, even though your father wasn't. And that's why you were only in half daycare, so I could be with you more. And I still want to, but the difference is that now I have no energy." But it's like, first of all, why are you complaining about not having enough time with me if you are literally not up for it? And secondly, my dad was working at the time and she wasn't. Third, I was a child, and that's what parents are supposed to do. They're supposed to spend time with their children. She would say to me, "I don't know what I did wrong that you don't dare tell me things, and you just shut yourself in your own room." Now, the apex of all of this is when I had borrowed her car so I could drive my friend from one place to another for a couple of hours. We had an agreement that I could use her car all summer whenever I needed to if I paid for the fuel myself, as her commute was within walking distance. So I was returning the car, and she was taking me back to my place. I was telling her about my travel plans for next spring with a friend, as she asked what countries we were thinking about. I said to her, "Well, Ireland would be nice to visit again, but my friend would like to see the place better, as it would be a new country for her." My mom then said, "It might not be worth going as it's slower to get around, and you might want to go on your own trip." She then said, "And you should probably rent your own car if you're going to be in the country for a long period of time." And at that point, I was thinking to myself, well, that's not what I meant at all. Do you ever listen to me? Like, let me have a say in this. She then fired back at me and said, "Will you let your father have have a say, or even your stepmother. I'm only good for when you need a car or want money or know that you'll need money in the future. Otherwise, you just can't contact me. And I'm thinking, yeah, because the time that you see me, you're either screaming at me or getting angry. But anytime I tell her that, she would say, I'm only human. She then said to me, no need to drive all the way to the yard. Just leave it on the road and I'll leave right away. Then you can tell me how much money you need for the trip next spring. No need to contact me ever again. And then she just drove off. Now, I'm not surprised this actually happened, and I had been waiting for it, but not for a reason like this. My plan was to slowly meet her from time to time and maybe leave it at that so we could see each other at family gatherings without the awkwardness, and maybe in some way heal our relationship. But now I can understand that that's not it. I don't know what I should do about my graduation and such, and I don't want her to come because she would only get angrier and more insulted if I didn't allow her to be there. She might contact me before that anyways, so she could be invited since my career path and life has been so important to her. But now I tell my dad everything, and I just come along with him and his new family, so it is a win. But I still don't know what to do about my mother. What should I do? Honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would invite her to my graduation, but that would be it. Like, that would be the final concluding moment in my relationship with my mom in that regard, because the way she's acting is so toxic and so unnecessary. Like, seriously, just look at the way she's acting towards you and literally all your life choices. Nothing you ever do is good enough, and she's always just waiting to say some awful thing towards you. And like, that is just so unacceptable, and you do not deserve to deal with that, regardless of if she's your mom or not. Like, she's clearly bitter about this divorce or something like that, and she's just taking it out on you in ways that you do not deserve. So hopefully your life with your dad and your stepmom can be a lot better than what your mom is giving you, because she sounds like an awful person, and I don't blame you for trying to move on. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that she is ruining her child's life by giving him an iPad that he can use 24/7 without any restrictions? Because right now she is very angry with me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my sister and her husband have a 10-year-old kid who we will call Jimothy, who me and my husband sometimes babysit on the weekends, and on some days I take him to school. As of about a year ago, we started to notice that Jimothy was beginning to develop an American accent. For reference, we are Australian, and small kids have phases, so I didn't want to make this into a thing. But over the next few months, the accent got thicker and Jimothy became more irritable. Me and my husband brought this up with my sister, who said that Jimothy wasn't very grumpy when he was with her. He then started losing interest in almost all activities that he used to enjoy. And again, this was a concern for me. And every weekend, it just got so much worse. He would complain of being bored when we would offer an exhaustive list of all the things we could do with him, and he would just say no to every single one of them. The school year for 2024 started, and on the weekend after that, Jimothy told us that his teacher and a few classmates had asked him how long he'd been in the United States before moving to Australia, because at this point, his American accent was indistinguishable from a general American accent, and my husband and I were really wondering what was happening. Then it was Jimothy's birthday party. His family was invited, including me, and so were all of his friends. And this was the moment that made me realize to some extent what was going on. He was on an iPad, scrolling some kind of short-form content that I did not recognize. His friends wanted to play with him, and he just did not notice that they were even there. People were giving him presents, and he acted like he was inconvenienced for having to turn the iPad off. Never before had any of my nieces or nephews reacted like this upon me giving them money and a delicious treat. I told my sister that something was going on, and that Jimothy is obviously not in a good way. She seemed very offended that I was questioning her parenting choices, as she put it, and she decided that me and my husband babysitting Jimothy had to stop. Well, the next time I saw Jimothy was very recently at my niece's birthday party with a different set of parents, and Jimothy was completely glued to the iPad. He was noticeably skinnier, which I suspect was because he was forgetting to eat in favor of spending more time on his iPad. And when anyone went over to talk to him, he would almost instinctively push the screen towards his body so nobody could see. Now, at this point, I had to talk to my sister and her husband. I told them what I thought, that a year ago, Jimothy was an energetic kid who got along really well with everybody, but now he's reclusive, and it's obvious from just looking at him that he is absolutely skipping meals. My sister denied any changes in Jimothy's behavior, but her husband did admit that I was right to some extent, and Jimothy's friends stopped trying to hang out with him because he said no 100% of the time. I told my sister that she was wrecking Jimothy's life by continuing to let this iPad stuff happen, and at that point she started shouting at me and then walked out of the party. So I really need to know, am I the jerk for saying what I did to my sister? Because right now I really don't know what to do. I don't think you're the jerk personally, because I think you're completely right. This kid is very clearly addicted to his iPad, and he is clearly not being monitored by his parents, and they're using that iPad as like a babysitter instead of monitoring him more closely. Like, this kid absolutely has a problem and it needs to be addressed. And I don't know if you've run into a kid who's like addicted to their iPad, but I definitely have, and they are a nightmare to deal with. Like, seriously, I've seen a kid lose his mind, go absolutely insane because somebody took his iPad away. Like, it did not matter what was happening around them, they literally only wanted the iPad and nothing else would make them happy. So I think you expressing that to your sister and her husband, in my opinion, was some very well-needed tough love, because these people just don't get it. They clearly don't see what they're doing to their son, and they're also not even watching what this kid is watching. Like, really, if the American accent wasn't a dead giveaway, that their son is clearly watching way too much content online, then I really just don't know what else is going to get through to these people. Because eventually, it's going to be too little too late, and this kid's going to turn into a real monster and be completely antisocial and just a weird kid in general when he becomes a teenager. So no, you're not the jerk by telling your sister exactly what's going on, because her lack of accountability is going to ruin her child. My toxic, entitled manager tells me that I should quit my job as she feels that I'm not cut out to be a waiter at her restaurant. But after dealing with her nasty attitude, as well as her mistreatment on a daily basis, I finally decided to stand up for myself in a way that I never thought I'd ever be able to do. Here's what happened. So I started working at a casual dining restaurant about 2 weeks ago, and this was my first job in the service industry. I was not actually trained or anything like that, and I just had to learn as I went by observing my coworkers and looking stuff up online. The job was absolutely awful. The owner didn't know what she was doing, everything was extremely disorganized, the waiters would take their stress out on me, and I was constantly given contradictory instructions. For example, they would say that my top priority should be taking food to the customers, but then when I would do that, they would scream at me and be like, "Oh, don't take the food to the customers, that's not your assigned task." I was expected to know things that I couldn't possibly know if I wasn't told. My manager and the owner expected me to simply read their minds. I was working over 9 hours a day, 6 days a week, and they did not pay extra hours, even though most days we would work from 1 to 3 hours more than we were supposed to. I was struggling a lot, trying to find a way to improve and deal with the stress of this job while working with frankly awful people. But I realized that I love being a waiter. I'm great with customers, I'm quick, I learn fast, and I've got a lot of stamina. During my last 2 shifts, I found a strategy to avoid getting overwhelmed that really was working wonders. I basically just pretended I was having the time of my life, and I started to believe it. I was singing along to the music, smiling and joking around with the customers, being kind to my coworkers, and I really thought I had it all under control. But then, my manager approaches me at the beginning of the Sunday night shift and says to me something that honestly blew my mind. She said, "To be honest, we don't think you're cut out for this line of work. The service industry is very stressful, and you cannot handle this level of stress. In fact, I don't think you ever will be able to handle it. I wouldn't even try to work at a restaurant again if I were you. Some people just can't do this type of thing, and you're one of them." Now, my sensitive and empathetic personality has always been something I don't really like, so her words really hurt me. I was just starting to turn things around and use what I consider my flaws as a tool. And yes, I'm sensitive and empathetic, and people's bad moods can get me down, and thus I started to put my best foot forward, connect with customers and treat them with the kindness and empathy that I would show a good friend. I decided to fight everyone's foul mood by being in such high spirits that it was essentially impossible for them to not smile. But my manager and the owner disliked me. They had started to treat me very harshly during my last few shifts, and I noticed this, but I was trying to pretend that everything was all right. I finished up my shift as well as I could, made sure every customer I served that night left with a smile on their face, and said goodbye to my coworkers and waited to get home to have a good cry. And now I'm devastated. I loved being a waiter despite the negative experiences at this restaurant. Before that shift, I was telling my friends that I believe perhaps this was the line of work for me, and it destroyed me to be told that actually I'm not cut out for this and that I never will be. So now I don't know what to do. I feel lost, and I'm afraid that my manager is right, and I'm just not strong enough for this line of work even though I loved it. I don't want to go back to office work, which can be as stressful, but without the benefit of interacting with customers face to face. What should I do? Before we go any further, the original poster actually has an update for this story. Here's what they had to say. So after the incident with my manager, I decided to quit, and yesterday, the owner called me to ask if I would be willing to try working at their second location, which is closer to my house and is a much smaller place. She told me that she believed I could handle it and that she knows the way I work and she trusts me to give it a trial shift and see how I feel. And you know what? In a couple of hours, I'm going there to try it out. It's Friday and close to the holidays, so it will be packed. And this really should give me a good idea of how the team at this location location functions under stress. So I'm very nervous but hopeful. I'm coming in a different person than I was when I started at the first location, especially given that I know the menu, their system, and I have some experience under my belt. But I really hope it all works out because the way I got treated at my other location was honestly so disrespectful. Wow, good for the original poster for seeing their worth and saying, you know what, I am not going to take this any longer. Because that manager is out of her mind if she thinks the way she acted is in any way appropriate. Like, what kind of manager would be like, I don't think you're cut out for this job and you should probably just quit. Like, you should just quit right now and never come back. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's pretty clear that the manager was just straight up miserable at her job, and she's only saying that because she knows that you're trying to make the best of your job, whereas she's given up on that idea probably decades ago. This is very obviously a loser trying to bring someone down to their level, and I'm so glad that you decided to put your foot down and say, I'm not working there ever again. But also, to the credit of the owner of these stores, it's nice to see that they saw that yes, you are a valuable member of the team, and that they have good reason to try and keep you around. But regardless, I really hope that manager gets reprimanded or best of all fired from their job, because any manager who's trying to like convince their workers to quit, all because they're jealous of the way that they're actually enjoying their job, in my opinion, has no business being a manager, because that kind of behavior is absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My girlfriend broke up with me, all because I took my mother with me to the hospital, and now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so my girlfriend and I have been together for about 3 years now. Since the beginning of our relationship, all I can remember is my girlfriend hating my mother for absolutely no reason, and I mean genuinely no reason. She has openly admitted that she can't even tell me why she dislikes my mother so much, but it's so bad to the point where I'm not even allowed to talk to or see my mother without getting broken up with. About 6 days ago, I developed a severe case of tonsillitis, and I needed to go get a local anesthetic procedure done. Now, my mother is the one who controls our medical scheme, which means she needed to be there to fill out the forms and make the payments. Well, this resulted in a nightmare. Not only has my girlfriend broken up with me for it, but she has also given me the ultimatum to choose either her or my mother, and that I need to completely cut her out of my life, meaning that I would block her on everything and take myself off of every life and medical insurance that we share. Now, keep in mind that she has admitted to hating my mother for no reason. She has also told me that she'd be less upset if I cheated on her than if I spent time with my mom. Now, in my girlfriend's defense, 3 days ago before the procedure, she offered to come take care of me, to which I very politely declined because I had an extremely busy day trying to get my car fixed. So she has taken it very personally that I chose my mother to come with me to the procedure instead of her, when in reality, I simply just needed her there for logistical reasons. So now I feel completely lost and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, you should really be thanking your girlfriend for breaking up with you because she sounds insane. Like, seriously, what's going on right now? She is blatantly saying, hey, I hate your mom for no reason, and if you want to be with me, you need to cut all contact with her. And it's like, why should I do that? What, simply just because you don't like her for some mystery reason? Like, is this lady a sociopath or some kind of narcissist? Because she's given no reason as to why she doesn't like your mom. She just decided, oh, I hate her. You need to cut her off and block her on everything. So honestly, I think you should be thanking this lady for breaking up with you because she sounds insane. Like, this is not someone you want to have a relationship with. She also highly projected that, oh yeah, I'd be okay with you cheating, but don't talk to your mom. And that kind of seems like she's testing the waters, where the subtext kind of reads like, oh, if you cheated on me, I'd be okay with it, so you should be okay with me cheating on you. And that means to me, like, either she's completely out of her mind, or she's actively, like, currently cheating on you, and this is the only stupid reason she can come up with to try and, like, break things off. So truly, I would move on with my life and not look back, because your ex-girlfriend sounds like an absolute psychopath. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for telling my aunt that her kids are entitled little brats? Because after dealing with them for most of the day, I am seriously so sick of their behavior, and I really just can't take it any longer. Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old female, and I was recently at a family gathering of all the relatives and their partners on my mom's side of the family. It's a pretty large family, and it was one of the first times I met one of my aunt's kids after COVID. This aunt, who we will call Nina, has 2 kids that are about 6 years old, and their names for the sake of the story will be Wayne and Eric. And I want to preface this by saying, yes, I know they're little, and the kids were not anywhere in earshot when I talked to Nina. Anyways, these kids are a chore to be around. Normally, I love kids, but these kids are something else. The first thing that happened when we were having dinner is that Wayne walked up
up to me and said, "You're ugly."
Now, I didn't take it too seriously. I mean, kids are like that, and I thought it was funny more than anything else. So I just kind of let out a giggle. This kid then gave me a look of pure hatred, and then he kicked me with a surprising amount of strength all before running away. And in fact, both of his parents were even at the table. The next morning, I woke up to screaming, and when I ran upstairs, Wayne is glued to his tablet, and Eric is screaming at my grandmother. She had tried to get him to move away from his phone to come down for breakfast. Eric was slapping and kicking grandmother, who is in her early 80s and has arthritis. So I let out a yell by saying, "How dare you?" I then proceeded to tell him more calmly that our grandmother deserves respect. This kid then looks me in the eye and says, "You're not the boss of me." But I just rolled my eyes and said, "Fine, but when mommy and daddy leave you here, you have to listen to grandma." He then looks at grandma and gives her a little smirk and says to her,
"I'm gonna tell daddy that you hit me."
And my grandmother started to explain that telling lies like that is very dangerous, but he just stomped up to the room. Now, as time went on, they got even moodier. One of them, I can't remember which one, knocked a bunch of stuff off the table before looking at my grandfather and saying, "I'm not cleaning this up. You can't make me." Now, their parents are present for these incidents, and they do literally nothing about it. Finally, Wayne walked up to me and said, "Your dad looks dirty." And mind you, my dad is Latin American. So I tried to calmly explain why this was not okay to say, but he ran away. I then went to find my aunt and tried to explain all the things that had happened. She said that they're just kids and that they'll learn someday. But I just straight up told her that her kids are entitled little brats and that she needs to teach them to be better people and to respect others. You know, the kind of stuff you would learn in preschool. She then told me that I was being a bratty little girl. But I said I'm an adult and I've been in this family much longer than she has, as she got married into the family last year. So she has no right to talk down to me like that. And after I said that, she left. Now, this is a question I can see coming up. Where were all the adults? Well, whenever the family gets together, the adults leave the kids either with me as I am the oldest or with my grandparents. But anyways, should I apologize to my aunt? Did I go too far? Am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, this might be a little rude, but I'm just gonna say it. You are definitely not the jerk. I can't stand when people don't take care of their kids and they don't correct them when they're doing awful behavior, because by doing nothing, you're giving this demon a license to basically do whatever he wants. Like, these 6-year-olds are running around saying, "I'm not gonna clean this up. You're ugly. You look dirty." Like, what are you doing? That is not okay. You can't talk to people like that. And this behavior very easily could be corrected. Like, the aunt in this situation is an adult. There's no excuse for allowing this kind of behavior. Like, this is so unacceptable, even for like family gatherings. Because sure, at like family reunions or stuff like that, it's totally fine to let your hair down and be more yourself. But if that means your kids are gonna be running around and breaking things and saying awful things to like everybody around them, then you need to step up and be like, wait, no, that's not gonna happen. And any other justification of, oh, they're still young, they're just kids. Like, sure, they're just kids, but guess what? They're your kids. And your kids are being very entitled and very annoying. And trust me, if you're not gonna correct them, someone else will, and that's not gonna be good because clearly you're just super sensitive about it. So no, of course you're not the jerk. This needed to be said because clearly your aunt is not a very good parent. Am I the jerk for leaving a family party early when my father's wife wouldn't leave me alone and kept trying to force some kind of relationship? Because after my father cheated and ruined my family, I decided I wanted nothing to do with him or his wife. And now my extended family is saying that I'm at fault for leaving early and for reacting poorly during a family event. Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old male and I became estranged from my father 2 years ago after he was outed for having an affair. The woman in question is someone he had worked with, who knew he was married, who had met my mom and me, and it seemed a little off at the time. We now know it was because she liked my dad and wanted me to like her. I was disgusted with my dad. He tried denying it, then he tried to convince mom that it was a one-night stand and nothing more, and that he would forever regret it. But then he wanted her to stay with him and raise the baby he knocked the other woman up with, since they only had me at the time. Even when he moved in with the other woman, he kept trying to stop mom from going through with the divorce. He tried to get me to talk to mom on his behalf. He told me mom was the one breaking up our family and not him. Then when he gave up and accepted mom wouldn't take him back, which is when the other woman lost the baby, he tried to get me on board with things. But I ignored all calls and text messages from him. I couldn't block him while still a minor, but I didn't reply, and I didn't see my dad face to face during this. I knew that I wanted him out of my life for good. He tried to make me see him, but he failed, and once I turned 18, it was completely over for him. He ended up marrying the other woman, and now they're expecting a kid together, and I don't want anything to do with any of that, including the baby. And yes, even if I don't have to see them, I have zero interest in knowing that child or any future children. Now, I still see the extended family, which is why I was at a party they also attended, even though they weren't technically invited to it. During the party, Dad's wife approached me and told me that she wanted to talk, but I said no and then I walked away. And when she came up again, I walked away again. But on the third time, when she spoke to me before I could move, she said she wants her baby to know their brother and she wants me to be a part of their family. She wants to know me and have me for dinner, and maybe I could spend some time with them. She tried to say, oh, we're family now, which is honestly just such crap. So I ended up leaving early because I did not want to deal with it. So I thanked the hosts who were already annoyed that she and Dad were there. And for reference, a couple of Dad's siblings want him around still, while the others don't, but they still want to keep the peace and let them stay. The two siblings of Dad who think that we should all be easier on Dad and forgive him were so pissed at me for leaving early because then the rest of the family turned on Dad. They told me that I could have spoken to the woman and not taken it out on her, since apparently she didn't do anything to me. And they said that leaving was an over-the-top reaction, and it's not a mature one, which just caused family disharmony. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? First of all, I love how toxic these siblings are unintentionally being. They're completely showing their hand that they're not only tolerating this behavior, but that they're also upset that you're literally not taking it like they do. They're missing the fact that this woman is the reason his family fell apart. He cheated with her, and guess what? She was a willing participant. She knew there was a family behind this dad, but she went ahead with it anyways. So it's insane to assume that she did nothing to the original poster, because she, along with the dad, completely ruined the family. But also, more to the point, I don't think you're the jerk at all for leaving early and getting away from this lady. You literally want nothing to do with your dad or this lady that he married. They ruined your family, they tore apart everything, and you've made it very clear by ignoring all of his calls and text messages that you want nothing to do with your father. So in my opinion, anybody saying, oh wow, look at what you did, this is an overreaction, they can quite literally get lost because they have no say in this matter. Because these people in a lot of ways ruined your life. And if I was being confronted in the way that you were confronted, I absolutely would have done the exact same thing. I caught my girlfriend on a dating app after we agreed that we would be on a break. And now after confronting her about it, I feel like I'm completely lost and that our relationship is falling apart. Because right now, I really don't know what to do. I'm a 27-year-old male, and I've been with my partner Laura for about a year and a half. Laura is not her real name. We met on Bumble and have been living together for the past 6 months. A few months ago, I began having health problems, which did a number on my mental health. It took a toll on my relationship with Laura, who I think struggled to wrap her head around the mental health aspect. I began to feel like I could not open up to her about how much I was struggling and had to manage her happiness for the sake of the relationship. Eventually, things came to a head one day, and I admitted to her that I was having some very dangerous and dark thoughts, if you know what I mean, which greatly upset her. We agreed that it would be best if I left our shared apartment and went home to stay with my parents for a while to recuperate, focus on rehabilitation for my condition, and get myself feeling better again mentally. A few weeks after moving back home, I could sense that Laura was growing distant with me. She admitted that she was struggling with me opening up about my dark feelings. She then called me in tears one day to say that she wants a break. Now, I am shocked and hurt, but I agree to the break as long as we do not date or see other people, as I would prefer we separated full time if that were the case. And when I said this, she agreed to that. Well, one evening, she reveals that she is heading to a night out with a friend of hers, who I will call Mary for the sake of the story. I've had a bad feeling about Mary for some time for reasons I can't quite put my finger on, and I had a feeling deep in my gut that something wasn't right about that evening. I end up downloading Bumble and creating a fake profile. I set it to our city, and I spend a while that evening swiping through women's profiles. And eventually, my worst fears are confirmed. I encounter a profile made by Laura with very recent photos of her. I call Laura up immediately and I confront her. I'm distraught and I'm choking back tears, but she repeatedly denies having made the profile in earnest. She claims that Mary made the profile for her as a way of getting her out of the rut caused by our break. Eventually, I calm down after Laura reassures me that she would never do anything to hurt me. The following day, she asked me how I managed to find her on Bumble, and that's when I come clean and say that I had a bad feeling about the situation, and I decided to go with my gut. She then goes a bit quiet on me, and then insinuates that I'm creepy for stalking her, but I retort that at the end of the day, I found her on a dating app, and that she is not in a position to be taking the moral high ground. Well, she agrees, but not without a bit of silent protest. Fast forward a few months, and I'm feeling better about life. I move back in with Laura, and we try our best to pick up where we left off. I managed to forgive Laura, but I had a hard time looking past Mary's actions. Whenever Laura offered to meet up with with Mary for drinks, I would decline and stay at home. Laura eventually confronts me on my refusal to hang out with Mary, and I come clean and I tell her I would rather not spend time around and pretend to play happy families with someone who meddled in my relationship and nearly caused my partner and I to separate. Well, Laura doesn't take well to this and spends the rest of the day in a bit of a huff with me. I am very perplexed by the situation. Laura seems to have a hard time understanding why I don't really like Mary or even want to hang out with her. It is making me wonder whether the story about Mary making the Bumble profile for her is true or not. One thing that also struck me about the Bumble profile is that it has a pretty striking similarity to the one Laura had when we first started dating. Very similar wording and personal information. At the end of the month, Laura is going away on a girls' trip with another one of their friends to another city for the weekend. And I don't want to tell Laura that she can't go, but I am not thrilled by the situation either. So at this point, I really could do with some input. Laura seems keen for me to play happy families with Mary, which I have absolutely no intention of doing. I also wonder if I was a bit too quick to forgive Laura and that there is perhaps more to the story than she is telling me. What should I do? Yeah, I would never bring back my girlfriend in a million years if I saw that she made a profile on Bumble. And that's regardless if a friend made that for her or not. Like, first of all, she has terrible friends, and the fact that she still wants to spend time with that friend shows me that she values that friendship more than our relationship. Like, why on earth would she want to be friends with someone who is blatantly trying to destroy her relationship? That literally makes no sense to me. Like, wouldn't you want to try and be around people who are going to be encouraging and they're going to be like, listen, you're on a break, but you can make this work? Because what Mary did, in my opinion, does not classify as a good friend. This is not someone who's going to like keep an eye out for you or help you in any kind of way. This is literally someone who's trying to take away from your relationship and basically try to drag the both of you down a really weird path. But honestly, that's only if Mary actually did make that profile. Because in my opinion, I think Laura's absolutely lying to you. I'm kind of convinced that she made that profile, but she got caught red-handed, which is why she went on the defensive. Like, she literally tried to turn this back on you and be like, wait a second, why are you stalking me? It's kind of weird that you're on Bumble. How did you find it, huh? When it's like, wait a second, you're the one with the profile, not me. I had to download the stupid application and make a fake profile just to see that you have an active profile. Like, seriously, let's not get this twisted around. So if I was in this situation, there is no way on earth I would ever let this go, because this, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.